that has a tracker on him.
Okay.
Well, we track Santa all over the world. We want to make sure that Santa is being good. Santa's a very good person. We want to make sure that he's not infiltrated, that we're not infiltrating into our country a bad Santa. So we found out that Santa is good.
Thank you. Bye.
Santa loves you. Santa loves Oklahoma like I do. You know, Oklahoma was very good to me in the election. So I love Oklahoma. Don't ever leave Oklahoma, okay?
Okay, I'll try. That has a tracker on him.
Good. Oh, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Vibe Program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. I hope you all had a really good Christmas Eve. Those of you celebrating the holiday in particular, that I know some folks make a big deal tonight, others tomorrow, different customs for different folks. You know, amongst if it was a Jewish holiday, they would say the phrase, which you're unlikely to have heard if you're not an Ortho Jew, which is Minhag Avosenu Biyodenu. The customs of our forefathers is what we have. That's what we follow. And I think it's probably true with respect to the way Christians celebrate Christmas. Some of you might be exchanging gifts tonight. Some of you might have it wait until midnight or till the morning. Santa, whatever it is, however it is you're celebrating, however it is you're doing. If you're one of those folks who's pulling up into your driveway with a nice little Christmas Lexus for the wife, however it is, with a big bow on it, however it is you're doing it, whatever way you're doing it, I hope that it's enjoyable, memorable, and a phenomenal season for you and yours of perfect health, prosperity, and genuine satisfaction and good cheer amongst all men and women. Let's not excuse the ladies. So there you go. Anyway, Merry Christmas to you all. Tonight's show, I got like some legal stuff to talk to you all about. Some legal mumbo jumbo that I want to try and clarify for you all, because there's stuff that's been going on that you people need to understand, like what is happening as it impacts the world. The two different legal elements, which I think were an interesting thing that I have headlined for tonight, include the following. Number one, we got a leftist who's actually a guy who's been on my show. He made an appearance one time on my show, named Brian Krasenstein, who went out and said some fairly radical sounding things in what he claims was an effort to try and show up MAGA, and arguably broke the law. We're gonna talk about that, and it's a really interesting little segue into freedom of speech. The second issue is Supreme Court came out with a 25-page decision. It's really a 2-page decision with like another couple of pages of concurrence from Justice Kavanaugh, and then a lengthy dissent from Justice Alito, and then a brief dissent from Justice Gorsuch. Thomas signed on with Alito. And a 6-3 decision that came out from the Supreme Court yesterday, wherein they denied Trump's right, ability, and power to unleash the National Guard in the state of Illinois, as he has in Chicago, and saying that he does not have that basis. The legal basis doesn't exist. And in so doing, they kind of seem to be carving out an opportunity for Trump to take actually far, far more aggressive action. If you actually read the decision, what the decision says, and it's a decision that's kind of astonishing. I got all that and more that's coming up for you tonight. I also have a goal up there. I plan on doing a call-in show tonight. If we hit our goal, which is our normal goal, 15 super chats of $10 or more, I'll make it for everyone. If not, I'm just going to make it members only. But I definitely plan on having a call-in section of the show tonight. So if we hit our goal, great. And if not, okay. I still wish each and every one of you a happy Merry Christmas and all that good jazz. All that good jazz. Anyway. Cars and Dimensions saying it's almost as quiet as a Friday night in Lakewood. Maybe, I don't know. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. We don't have many gifts, but lots of food. Smoked turkey, prime rib, and smoked salmon. Dang, that sounds good. That sounds real. Smoked turkey, prime rib, and smoked salmon. Woo! Old school knows how to do it right. That's how you do it right. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So, I think I'm going to start off by sharing with you the I want to look first at the situation here, the Krasnstein, because I think this is really interesting. I covered a couple of other smaller news stories that I'm always going to throw other stuff at you. Those are the two main stories, but that's what I really wanted to start with. And the post that was sent out there that has MAGA all saying, what the hell is wrong with you, Brian Krasnstein? Which is not the first time that MAGA has asked that question to Brian Krasnstein. And again, I've had him on my show, this guy. I've had him on this guy right here. Let me show you who I'm talking about, because those of you who are not on X are unlikely to know who he is. This is Brian Krasnstein. He actually has a twin brother, Ed, who's, I believe, an identical twin. So you can't really tell them apart by face. I've had Brian on my show. He's a pretty significant, almost 1 million followers, left wing, just a leftist shill. The reason I've had him on my show was to debate him about various topics of the day, and because I had been on spaces with him, and I found that of the people on the left, he's actually someone who 2 years ago, I wouldn't say now, but I would say in 2023, 2.5 years ago, he was someone who you could have a debate with him, and he actually could engage in not trying to overtalk you, but trying to poke holes in your argument while standing up for his own side and, do it in good faith. So that's why I brought him on here. That's why I introduced him to you fine people way back in the day. And he's gotten more and more hardcore left, at least the tone that I get from his posts. A lot of people say that he gets paid to post. And he's got, I don't know whether he is or he isn't. I've never asked him that question. Whatever it is, if he's making good points, he's making good points. If he's not, there's stupid points and there's stupid points. To me, if people are paid for doing what they do, I don't really even care that much. It's just that if they are paid, then they're less likely to be dealing in good faith. This is what he posted that got everyone so upset. What he wrote was, Trump is a dead man walking. America should put him to sleep now. It's the humanitarian thing to do. You look at this and you're like, dude, are you out of your friggin' mind? What the hell is wrong with you? And he got a lot of flack on, in 3,100 comments. And he followed that up with the subsequent posts that came out hours later, because came out like the next afternoon. Note to those who don't get it, I'm not calling for violence against Trump of any kind. I'm 100% against violence. I'm also 100% for pointing out the hypocrisy of MAGA. Happy holidays. What is the hypocrisy that he claims exists in MAGA? It is this True Social post that was shared by Trump that he was seemingly trying to mirror. Trump wrote, Stephen Colbert is a pathetic train wreck with no talent or anything else for show business success. Now, after being terminated by CBS but left out to dry, he has actually gotten worse along with his non-existent ratings. Stephen is running on hatred and fumes. A dead man walking. CBS should put him to sleep now. It is the humanitarian thing to do. So he obviously is tailoring after this language, after this, he's obviously trying to mirror this. I think anyone who's, knows the existence of this post recognizes that he wrote his post like 3 hours after this, like 3 in the morning. Trump wrote this around midnight. He wrote his around 3 in the morning. So it's very clear that he definitely was trying to mirror what Trump did. There's a lot of problems with that, though, from a logical and legal perspective. He's not an attorney, so he might not realize that. But I mean, he made a whole big stink, basically claiming, "I'm just doing what I'm just, the hypocrisy of MAGA. I'm just doing what MAGA's doing. I'm just saying the same things they're saying. Why is everyone whining at me?" People make fun of his voice, so it could be that too. But he made this post on his Krasencast thing, which says, "MAGA's calling for my arrest for copying Trump." Early Christmas Eve morning, Trump posted on Truth Social the following post attacking Stephen Colbert. And MAGA erupted in glee on social media, cheering the rhetoric and praising Trump for saying Colbert was a dead man walking. So an hour later, I decided to mimic Trump and see how MAGA would react. I made the following tweet using the same exact words, replacing Colbert with Trump and CBS with America. Yeah, that changes a lot, though. It changes a lot. It changes. Dude, it literally changes everything. I know you think you're being clever. It literally changes everything. Besides the fact that you also lack in the context that he gave. Because Trump didn't just write Stephen Colbert is a dead man walking. America should put him to sleep. That would be a very different thing. It's context. Context is kind of important. Things went just how I expected. Within hours, my name was number 16 trend in Twitter, and some of X's largest MAGA accounts began to call for my arrest, tagging the FBI, my local police, and the Secret Service. I think this says everything. See some of the responses. Justin, high-level Democrat Party influencer Brian Krasenstein is being accused of urging assassination of President Trump and is facing calls for being banned from X and investigated by the Secret Service. Krasenstein was up at 3 a.m. on Christmas Eve, fantasizing about murdering the President of the United States. Dom Lucre saying liberal influencer Brian Krasenstein is being accused of calling for the murder of Donald Trump after posting Trump as dead man walking. America should put him to sleep now. And he's saying it's hypocrisy. All of his sycophants are like, "Oh, you got them, Brian." Nah, not so much. Really, not so much. He didn't really get anyone. Didn't really get anyone. This is sort of like the half thinking that the left tends to do. It's really like half thinking. And it's because if you think anything through all the way when it comes to Democratic policies, you sort of see how stupid they are, I think. It's really half thinking. Because first and foremost, nobody who's reading this post, because of its context, no one who understands how English language works who reads this post thinks that Trump is calling for the murder or assassination of Stephen Colbert. That's very different than if he had just started. If he had just started with this part here, if he had said Colbert is dead man walking, CBS should put him to sleep now, it's the humanitarian thing to do, that would be a much more aggressive and kind of borderline insane post. Why the hell would you write that? But even saying CBS, you sort of recognize as soon as he says CBS, you know it's a professional thing. You know, he's talking about his career. As soon as he says CBS should put him to sleep, that means he's talking about his career. Because he doesn't mean, presumably, that CBS executives should put a bullet in Stephen Colbert's brain, God forbid. So I understand. I don't think Krasenstein was genuinely calling for Trump's assassination. I don't think that he would have done that, but for he's trying to point out the hypocrisy. But I do think that he ended up doing it, whether or not he's intending to do that. And frankly, so the context matters a great deal. Obviously, when he says that when Trump says that Colbert is a pathetic train wreck, no talent, and that he's being fired, and that he's on non-existent ratings, and that he's basically running stupid show, and they should just, he obviously means pull the plug on him. So to make, he's trying to make as if this is an aggressive thing. That's what Kras's objective is, that he wants to make as if this is some sort of, very aggressive thing when no one would take this as being so aggressive. Nobody. But he's trying to portray it as if, well, when we say about Trump, you take it as being aggressive. Yeah, because there's a difference between saying it in context, and there's a difference between saying America should put him to sleep versus CBS should put him to sleep. So those are two very, very dramatic differences, which don't make your analogy a very good one. It makes it actually a pretty stupid analogy. It makes it a really stupid, really, really stupid analogy. But there's another element also, which is if Trump had written something more aggressive about Stephen Colbert, if he had written something like that, that still would not open the doorway for Brian Krasenstein to write what he wrote about Donald Trump necessarily. Does not open that doorway because there's a little thing called federal law. And under federal law, we got federal statutes. And one of those federal statutes that we have is something known as 18 U.S.C. 871, threats against president and successors to the presidency. Ooh, oh, oh no, oh no. Yeah, so whoever knowingly and willfully deposits for conveyance in the mail for delivery for any post, etc., you see how old this thing is, right? As far as you're not able to just threaten the president. Whoever knowingly deposits for conveyance in the mail or for delivery for any post office by letter carrier, any letter, paper, writing, print, missive, or document containing any threat to take the life of or kidnap or to inflict bodily harm upon the president of the United States or president-elect, vice president, other officer next in order of succession to the office of president, or knowingly willfully otherwise makes any such threat against the president, etc., shall be fined under this title in prison not more than 5 years, or both. There is a specific, as much as we love freedom of speech, it's pretty well established. You can't make threats against the president. So, yeah. Now, did he violate 18 U.S.C. 871? That's really, that's an interesting question. Did he violate it? I'm not doing now. I'm not doing that now. I can't. Thank you. Yeah. So I'll tell you right now. That I think it's kind of stupid, the point he was trying to make. Not just kind of stupid. I think it was very stupid. This point that he was making. He says the amount of outcry was posed that I merely used Trump's own words for says everything you need to know about MAGA. No, it says
Dead man walking. CBS should put him to sleep. On Christmas Eve, Donald Trump posted this about Stephen Colbert. Stephen is running on hatred and fumes. A dead man walking. CBS should put him to sleep now. It is the humanitarian thing to do. I decided to point out the hypocrisy. I tweeted the exact same thing, but I replaced Stephen with Trump. Does this sound like a threat to anyone else? FBI, this is wrong. Krasenstein is calling for violence on President Trump.
No, you also took out the context. So you took out all of the context, and the context changes everything. Well, it's like, you know, if I say I hope the Yankees kill the Red Sox, you just take out the word Yankees and replace it with some lunatic, and you take out Red Sox and change it to Pelosi. In that case, I'm the jerk. I mean, it's the stupidest thing in the world.
Brian is threatening to the president, FBI. What a horrible and criminal thing to say. The CIA and FBI should take this threat seriously. Trump has Secret Service. Stephen Colbert does not. I'm against all violence.
That's not the point. Who cares about that? There's no violence being called for against Stephen Colbert. See, this is his faux tears of like, oh no, you're calling for violence against Stephen Colbert. No one thought that Trump was calling for violence. You're the only one who tried to read that into it. You're the only one who thought that. Nobody thought that. So you're trying to read into it and then flipping it around, removing context and trying to pretend that that's the same thing. It's the stupidest thing in the world. It's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. But is it a violation of 18 U.S.C. 871? Is it a violation of this statute? I think it's a technical violation. Although you could say it's not even a threat he's making. He's sort of calling for it without making a threat, right? He's saying someone should is not someone saying I will. So technically, if I was his counsel, I would say this is not a threat. He's calling for a political assassination, even if you take it seriously. Don't take it for the political point that he's trying to make, but you just take it seriously. If I was his counsel, which doesn't seem like it's something that's going to happen anytime in the foreseeable future, but if I were his counsel and he was brought in this particular case, I would try to argue this doesn't qualify as a threat. He's saying someone should. Maybe the part where he says Trump is a dead man walking, maybe that could be that could be gleaned a threat, I guess. That could be. But when he follows up with someone should, it's almost implying that he's not the one who's going to do it, right? And if you take the entire thing, forget about whatever stupid point, like illogical point he's trying to make with this ridiculous post, okay? But if we just look at the words that he wrote here, when he writes this, Trump is a dead man walking, that could be a threat. But then when he says America should put him to sleep now, it's a humanitarian thing to do. And almost let's pretend someone wrote these words without having the rhetorical reason that he came up with for writing it, right? In other words, you don't have it. They try to make a backward point about what Trump said, but that someone actually just wrote these words. So I think if he's not the president or vice president, I think there's probably nothing illegal about this. Probably nothing illegal about this. This is under the Brandenburg standard. It's going to be okay. And you can ask a question under the Brandenburg standard. How is it that 18 U.S.C. 871 is good law, right? So it makes a threat to the president, but it's not imminent in time and place. Why is that not a violation of the Brandenburg standard? Shouldn't the Brandenburg via Ohio, shouldn't that invalidate 18 U.S.C. 871? I've never researched that. I never had an opportunity to research that. I actually meant to try and look into that earlier today because I was a little curious about how it is that freedom of speech is used in a way to, it certainly seems as if it's impinging on freedom of speech, or arguably is. Although I guess words that relate to a crime have less protection. So when he says Trump is a dead man walking, if someone wants to take that as a threat, you could certainly say, who's it a threat from? When he follows up with America should put him to sleep now. If he said America will put him to sleep now, that's different than America should put him to sleep now. So if I was his counsel, I would be like, I don't think this is a threat. I don't think it's a threat. This is him saying what he's predicting will happen, but not saying he's going to do it. It's clearly not saying he's going to do it. So I would say that this is not, I would defend. So I don't think that this is something he can be charged with, frankly. And I personally don't want to see him get charged because I'm not really crazy about this statute. It's very, very, I'm really not crazy about this statute. I get it. I understand it. I think it's really more meant to stop people who are trying to control the president or frighten the president rather than someone spouting off on YouTube or social media or whatever. And obviously, in case anyone's confused about this or just stumbled on this on my stream for the first time in their lives, I am very, very, very vehemently against political violence of any stripe, whether it's against a Republican or a Democrat. So no one should think for a second otherwise. But I just don't know that this impingement on freedom of speech, I don't know how necessary it is. And certainly with respect to someone making a statement on social media, it doesn't feel like it's a threat. To me, if you're sending it in the mail, like the statute's contemplating, you're delivering it privately, that's designed to threaten someone. That's designed to scare them. So, what do you guys think? Tell me your thoughts as I hit up on the chats. DM'd you earlier. What White House and HHS Xmas vids epic? Let me see if I can find that for you. You DM'd me earlier, Kathy Chanel. I didn't see this earlier. I do see all sorts of like little DMs that I've gotten now that you call my attention to it. Oh, I like this. I think I'm gonna try and share these out. I'm trying to share these out. Thank you, Kathy. Not the first time Squeaky Krappenstein has threatened POTUS. Last time he had a couple-hour visit from Secret Service and was pretty cranky about it. Oh, well. Brian and his brother are carnival acts. Yeah, I get that. Also, Colbert isn't covered by 18 USC 871. Well, that's precisely where I was going with that. That's where I was covering, Kimmy. Yeah. So let me get. I'm gonna forget if I don't cover this now. Let me see what you share with us here, because this looks like something you may want to. You all may enjoy. Yeah, that's what I feel like. Also, I feel like he's like another Candace Owens type of grifter.
I'm busy, Mama. It's almost Christmas.
Who ever heard of a skinny Santa? Eat, eat.
All right. I'm just going to say this. That is far and away the worst imitation of RFK Jr. possible. You couldn't make a worse one. Should have made it a lot more gravelly.
Let's do this.
All right. It's going to be a Jack Santa. There you go.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
All right, there you go. That wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. He wasn't quite as jacked as I expected. Not quite as jacked as I thought it was gonna be. Let me just do this one real quick. I want to get this. I want to knock this. I want to knock this one out also.
It's so lovely. You deserve a home like this to spend Christmas in.
I like that one. That's cute. That's cute. Thank you. That would be awesome. That's what we need. Santa working for ICE. Love it. Love it. All right. Let me make sure I gotta check the ghetto because I haven't been looking in the ghetto yet. How you doing in the ghetto? You all amped for the holidays? You all amped for the holidays? I'm trying to figure out, by the way, I should give you all a heads up. I'm not sure what my schedule is going to be like next week. I have two weddings on back-to-back days next week. One of those weddings is Ron Coleman, and the other is my niece. And they're on back-to-back days, and I don't know. I definitely am going to both those weddings. Probably going to spend more time at my niece's wedding. So I don't know how that's going to affect my show. If I do a show, then that would be on the 30th and 31st. So that's a week from tonight and a week from yesterday. Right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, my math is right. Yeah, so that'd be next Tuesday and Wednesday. So I just want you to make sure that you check out goodlogic.locals.com. That's goodlogic.locals.com. This way, however that those weddings end up impacting my schedule, we'll all be on the same page, and you'll be aware of any changes in times and things of that nature. What else I want to get into before I get into this lengthy legal thing? There was a couple of other things I wanted to cover with you before I got into this lengthy legal thing, because this SCOTUS thing is something that I'm going to have to jump in with you with both feet, and we're going to sort of need to, just so you can actually understand what they said, which I'm going to try and make as simple for you as possible, so we're on the same page. And it's a little too warm for the South for Christmas. Solve this with the weather manipulation satellites. I'm on it. We got those Jewish space lasers. They're all about controlling the weather. So I get it. I don't understand. He's not getting married. It's his son is getting married. His youngest kid. So we're all very excited for him. I don't know if he told anyone. Don't tell him I told you. I shouldn't have said it. I assumed he announced it. I assumed that he will announce it. But yeah, I definitely plan on sending pictures from when I go there on X, and I'll share in locals, like pictures from the wedding. Come on. I don't know. Who knows? I also want to update you on this. And you know how there's a growing feud in MAGA? And Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly starting to side with them, and versus Tim Pool. And there's this whole growing feud. So because it's something that probably affects folks that you tend to watch and follow, likely affects some of them, I'm just going to keep you all somewhat updated that Alex Jones has gone full anti-Candace, like full anti-Candace. Laura Loomer takes credit for, believes that she's the one to credit for that, saying, I'm proud to say that I'm responsible for real Alex Jones seeing the light as it pertains to how malicious and insane real Candace Owens has become. A couple of weeks ago, Alex and I had a very long private conversation about some bad actors in the woke right, and Alex told me he was starting to come around to what I've been saying for the last 2 years. Eventually, more people wake up to this psyop. This is what Alex Jones shared out. It's all coming out, and Candace Owens doesn't care that she has accused a bunch of innocent people with ironclad alibis of being in a conspiracy against Charlie Kirk's life. And that's really messed up. It's really messed up. I'm just asking questions. Just asking questions. He also says, it's sad. Now that I'm investigating her, it's incredibly clear that it's all premeditated manipulation. I am completely blown away. So I was planning on dropping on you yesterday. I ended up running out of time. Didn't end up getting to it. I was planning on dropping you all yesterday. That one of the main things, I think I might have even made an allusion to it without actually getting into the story, that Candace Owens was claiming, oh, look, I'm vindicated because this source I've been quoting, there's some corroboration that he was where he says he was. What am I talking about? Let me just clarify, because I'm sure a lot of you aren't following the day-to-day saga of Candace Owens because you actually have lives. So let me explain to you what came out on Tuesday versus this thing over here today. So there's this guy who's a former soldier, former member of the services, who claimed that he saw Erica Kirk at a fort. And that when he saw a Fort like the day before Charlie Kirk was killed. And the implication of this whole thing is that she was there, I don't know, dealing with some sort of special ops or whatever, some sort of meeting that was designed to set up the assassination, Charlie Kirk. That's what the whole point to it was that this guy's name was Michael Snow. He goes by Mitch. I don't know how Michael became Mitch, but I guess there are a couple of letters in common, so maybe that's what it is. And there was all this. Candace Owens was very excited yesterday because she had quoted this guy as being someone who is, who is now a verifiable source, a reliable source to establish we have an eyewitness who saw Erica Kirk. Why is she at this military base? And there's even an eyewitness who wasn't supposed to see her, who came across her. And the whole idea, obviously, is that this is all an inside job. There's always an inside job. It's always an inside job. So yesterday, she was very, very excited. The name of the place was Fort Huachuca, spelled Huachuca, but I think it's pronounced Huachuca. She was very, very excited. This was Candace Owens yesterday, saying, find your favorite podcaster who joined the psychological operation to convince you Mitch was lying about having been at Fort Huachuca on 9/9 because I just received this incident report, the incident report. So the fort creates incident reports when something happens at the fort. Remember, Mitch said he was first taken outside by Captain Neff and questioned for a long time. After a long while, they made a decision to call the military police and report him as a possible bomb threat. As Mitch maintained at the stage, there is, of course, a paper trail, and here we have it. Bomb dogs were called at 11:17 a.m. I always believe Mitch's story, what happened on that morning, because he supplied overwhelming evidence with metadata and timestamps. Now we have the incident report. What we cannot confirm as of yet is his memory of who he's convinced he saw coming out of that early morning meeting. His memory is the whole point. Who cares whether or not this schmuck was there? We care about whether or not Erica Kirk was there. And how reliable is our evidence of that? I don't care if this dude was there. But now we know he was there. This is like a big, big deal. A big deal. We continue to focus our investigation on those points and remain open to the possibility that people he believed he saw may have been misidentified. This morning, the morning meeting is clearly important. They're sending out everyone to try and delegitimize it. This is what is written about this guy in the report. And I'm just like, this is your source you're so excited about? When I saw this, I was like, are you kidding me? You think this helps your story? Okay. This is what helps my story. You have to read this report. I'm going to just share this report with you really quick because I thought this was really, talk about a reach when you're desperate for a story. This is on Tuesday, the 9th of September, 2025 at 11:17 p.m., which, by the way, let's understand this. You're talking roughly 14 hours before he's assassinated. It's 11:17 p.m. Fort Huachuca Military Police Station was notified by Daniel Head of a suspicious individual at Southwest Border Mission Headquarters. Officer Navarro, Officer Johnson, and Sergeant McCaslin were dispatched. Upon arrival, patrol spoke with CW2 Daniel Head, who stated that the individual entered the building with a backpack making concerning comments. The backpack, I think it's a typo, was taken away and placed outside on the north side of the building and called the police station to report the incident. Sergeant McCaslin requested K-9 to sniff the bag and the vehicle, a gray ink color Chevy Equinox plate number NMIN66 from California, for the odor of explosives. Officer Navarro, Officer Johnson made contact with the individual identified as Mr. Michael Snow. There's your key person here. Civilian retired Michael Snow. From his Washington driver's license, Mr. Snow stated that he used to work in the Joint Task Force in the 80s while he was in the Army. Snow also stated that he was threatened by cartels and that he needed to talk to someone about it. IMV Carlson, investigators Olmos and Carlson, arrived on scene and requested the building 75025 be evacuated due to the suspicious package. So they think this guy is a potential threat, that he's some lunatic who's a potential threat. That's essentially what she thinks is this is a great day for her. Buildings were evacuated, patrols. See, this guy's a walking bomb threat. And she's like, no, that's just a cover up to try and delegitimize him. Buildings evacuated, patrols secure both the entrances to the area. Chief Davidson also arrived on scene to assist. K9 SPC Hayes arrived on scene and conducted sniffs on the backpack. Chevy Equinox in building 70525. Negative findings, so there's no bomb. Investigators Olmos and Carlson transports notes to the MPI office for further investigation. This is the final report. So she was all excited by this. This is like an amazing day for her for proving, I don't know what. I guess this now proves that Erica Kirk was at Fort Huachuca when she even admits and recognizes it's not really showing that she was there. It just shows that this guy was there. No one disputed whether or not this guy was there. But no one seems to really dispute whether or not this guy seems to be a freaking lunatic. So she was very excited by the lunacy report because that's what he reads like he's in this report. He's some sort of lunatic. So she was very excited by this. Very, very excited. Make sure you email Candace Owens if you have more tips. Email Candace Owens at moretips@candaceowens.com if you have more information. I got so many tips from her. I got tips about, that I got space lasers for her. I got all sorts of stuff for her. We're gonna put all this together. But Alex Jones is no longer buying it. It's all coming out. Candace Owens doesn't care that she has accused a bunch of innocent people with ironclad alibis of being a conspiracy against Charlie Kirk's life. And sharing this that Kaneko the Great shared out. This is a clip of Green Beret Valhalla channel saying he uncovered that Candace Owens' latest witness, Mitch Snow, is allegedly a serial woman abuser and con artist who fabricated his story. That's this guy, Michael Snow, a.k.a. Mitch Snow. Candace encouraged her audience to raise $138,000 on Give, Send, Go for him. Mitch Snow is a key witness in her latest baseless allegations claiming that Erica Kirk, Brian Harpole, and Representative Mark Amode and the U.S. military planned Charlie Kirk's murder at a secret meeting at Fort Huachuca. Candace has produced no verifiable evidence that they were ever there. Harpole and Amode have already provided alibis. Here we go. Let's hear the clip here from them.
To Mitch Snow. Oh, in my investigation into Mitch Snow, what I have found is maybe one of the most horrific, appalling human beings I've ever come across. The amount of violence against women in his record, kidnapping, abuse, fraud. Oh, I have the proof. I have it all. I have all the documents. It's really, really, really bad. And I'll tell you this, regardless of how we feel about Candace, we're fans of Candace. I stand up for women, as does JD. Me and JD both have very staunch anti-abuse against women and children stances. Hardline for both of us. I don't care who you are. If you platform and raise $130,000 for someone who has a visceral history of abuse against women, that's going to blow your guys' mind. I'm not going to allow that to happen. It's 1,000 times worse than any of you guys could have ever imagined. The stolen valor, the Fort Huachuca, well, we're going to debunk that. But that is nothing to this story. I'm actually horrified. I've talked to all of the victims. I've talked to his entire family. I've talked to his children. His own son, by the way, who was an Army veteran, will be coming out and speaking publicly with us to explain to you how his father, what a con artist his father is. It is insane who this man really is. That is coming Friday. Now, we don't need to, and again, I'm pretty emotional about it because listening to all of these victims, It's been rough.
Now, and I understand that because when you actually hear people talking about the abuse they suffer at someone's hands, it can, if you're a human, it's going to affect you on an emotional level. To the extent that we're fixating on this Mitch Snow dude for purposes of this story being realistic, because like them, I also, get outraged hearing about abuse of women or kids. So obviously that's horrible. You can foresee that some people would be like, even if he's a horrible person, that doesn't mean he didn't see what he saw. And that's why the fact that he's a con man is perhaps more compellingly relevant to the veracity of Candace's claims. Candace is rooting a lot of her claims, has leveled allegations based on this guy's claims. Now, that guy, monster or not, he could have seen stuff. Even monsters can be an eyewitness to something. So you can't pick your eyewitnesses. Your eyewitnesses are just there on the scene. So if this guy was a serial abuser and that was the extent of, and those horrible crimes were the extent of his flaws, you'd be like, well, look, he's a horrible person. That doesn't mean he didn't see what he saw. But when you blend that with him having a history of being a con man and that he's basically spends a life being full of hot garbage, and now you say this is who Candace is staking her claim on, some guy who's like a professional con man, that is obviously in certain ways far more damaging for Candace's Looney Tune theories. I think how insane it is to say Erica Kirk was at a fort meeting with military to plot the assassination of her husband. I mean, just think of how stupid this sounds. like this is like QAnon squared.
It's been rough. And again, I'm going to bring you every document, all the domestic violence files, all the court documents, all the military documents. We've got it all of it.
Do you think that Candace knows about this?
I hope not. And guys, this is what's really making me uncomfortable. If Candace knew this about this guy and decided to still platform him, I'm going to be horrified.
I'm going to tell you, she's the one who's doing the whole investigation here. You would think she should be looking into the veracity of the source that she's relying on. And here's the thing. She's continually relying on anonymous sources that I really trust, selling her own credibility as being why we should believe any of the whatever idiocy is being some lunatic decides to email her. So is she vetting these people or not? How can this not be on her? You have to know who it is you're talking to. What'd she do, like 3-minute look into this guy? I mean, come on, before you come out and use him as a basis to charge a widow with plotting the assassination of one of America's heroes? I mean, come on. You don't vet your source? How could she not vet her source? And if she hasn't vetted her sources, then what the hell use is she? But she's just some collation machine and then able to just put her own little unique spin as to what she thinks is significant? Well, what makes her any different from CNN or any of these people who come out with their bogus reports about, the new claim that Trump was doing something horrific with a 4-year-old girl or one of those stupid things that the left comes up with? What makes her any different? And she goes out there, accuses a widow of being complicit in the murder of her husband.
I'm going to be absolutely horrified if she did this knowingly.
But like I said, if she didn't do it knowingly, she's still to blame.
This is just who he is as a con artist. We haven't even got into debunking the Fort Huachaca story, which we're going to do very easily, by the way. But yeah, sorry. And again, it's making me emotional because I've sat on phone calls with hours with his family members, his kids. I mean, and we're talking about a litany of women that have been abused. Not one, not two, not three, not four. It's really, really, really bad.
And again, In no way, shape, or form should anyone make light of someone who abuses folks who are weaker than them, women or children. You're a complete and total freaking monster, and then they should punish you as aggressively as humanly possible. But for purposes of trying to, for purposes of trying to figure out the legitimacy of this story, the fact that he's a con man is arguably, in this context, it's more relevant. All right. I got a couple more stories I want to break down for you, but it's time for us to get into the legal end of things after I run through some chats here. Soldier of Providence. How are you, Anthony? Soldier's Silent Night was written by a Marine and recited by a Marine chaplain, set to the music of Silent Night on the violin. Wow. Also, Malcolm from Canada is still waiting for you to play Ace Attorney. Malcolm. That's what I should do. That's what I should do for Christmas. I should play Ace Ventura. Not Ace Ventura. Ace Attorney. What's his name, Malcolm? Tell me, Malcolm. What's his name? I forget. Keeps telling me to play that game. You a dimwit. Hit me with the 20. God bless you, brother. Genuine love to you and yours. Happy late Hanukkah and Merry Christmas to you too, my friend. I hope that this holiday season is exceptional for you in ways that exceed the best of holidays you've ever experienced, with health, wealth, good joy, and amazing memories. Candace could have typed that out herself. I would think it would be downloadable for YFoto because one could authenticate documents. I don't know. Look, maybe it is an authentic document. Maybe. It doesn't say anything. And the reason I don't think she wrote it herself is because I think it would be much more self-serving and beneficial to her case. Like, he claimed he saw Erica Kirk on his way out. That's what it would say in there, Before he left, he mentioned something about Erica Kirk. That's why Erica Kirk was visiting the fort. So it doesn't have that lunacy in there, so maybe she didn't write it. K.Ray says, thanks for keeping me company while I wrap presents. You're so welcome. You are so welcome. I hope that I'll tell you this. When it comes to wrapping presents, that is the exclusive domain in this house of Lady Logic. And just watching the joy she gets when our kids are opening presents is just something that's very heartwarming. More than watching them. I'm like watching her like giddy with glee. So yeah. So go, wrap away. I'm glad I could help keep you company during that chore. Let's get into this whole situation with the National Guard and the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court came out with a decision yesterday, December 23rd, saying that in a 6-3 margin, they came out against the National Guard being allowed to serve in Illinois. This does not affect the National Guard in D.C., but it does potentially put limits. Potentially, and we're going to see how they actually in certain ways opened up perhaps new loopholes or new barn doors for President Trump to use to become far more authoritarian. But the way that it's written, I understand it's a little bit confusing to people who are not attorneys. So I want to try and break it down for you. It's a 25-page decision here. So I want to try and break it down for you, the highlights of this particular decision. And I'm doing this as a public service because, as I was telling audio guy Joe yesterday when I met with him, when I do legal work like this, I understand there's not much for you guys to comment on. I get it. I understand it. But this is something that I think is interesting. And so let's break down the Supreme Court decision and what potential avenues it opens for President Trump. The decision is on an application for a stay. So this is not a final decision on the case. This is when the circuit court came out and told Trump he has to pull the National Guard from Illinois. So he went to Supreme Court and he applied for a stay, saying, let's hold off on that until the court is able to decide everything here on merit. In order to obtain a stay, you have to show the likelihood of success on the merits, that if the court agrees that you're more likely than not to win. And the court here basically comes out denying the stay on the basis by a 6-3 margin that they don't think he's going to win. They think the law is not on his side. So that does not bode well for the overall outcome of this case. Federal immigration enforcement efforts have encountered significant resistance as well as some violence in Chicago. So this is a brief background. The decision here is only 3 pages. It's we're going to jump from this into the dissent from Alito and Thomas. According to government, federal officers have been obstructed, threatened, and assaulted as they attempt to perform their duties. So this is why they're saying they need it. The government also alleges that ICE processing facility in Broadview, Illinois, has been the site of frequent and sometimes violent protests, damaging federal property and threatening the safety of federal officers. So here's why they're saying they need to have additional assistance. These attacks, the government says, have greatly impeded its efforts to enforce the immigration laws. On October 4, 2025, the president called 300 members of the Illinois National Guard, which doesn't sound like that many, right? It's not like he's got like a whole army there. 300 is like, okay, it's more men than I could get together, but, doesn't sound like it's that big a force. But he called 300 members of the Illinois National Guard into active federal service to protect federal personnel and property in Illinois, particularly in and around Chicago. Following day, members of the Texas National Guard were also federalized and sent to Chicago. They don't give us a number on that. In calling forth the guards, and they have to ask what statutes is he relying on when he's calling the guard. The president relied on 10 U.S.C. 12406 subsection 3. And when we focus, I'm just going to be referring to this as 12406 going forward. Okay. So he relied on 10 U.S.C. 12406 subsection 3, which empowers him to federalize members of the guard if he is, quote, unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. And this is the key language which the justices of the Supreme Court are going to be arguing what the heck this means. Unable with, where does this apply? What does it have to do with? So they say unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. If you look at just me reading this statute, I would say, okay, so you get the National Guard because I can't get folks. I can't execute the laws. I can't have my ICE officials, my members of my ICE team get out there. So I'm calling the National Guard to protect the ICE team. It seems to be, that's how I would, our regular forces are the ICE team. And I can't get them with the ICE team. With the ICE team, I can't do it because they can't execute because they're put in harm's way. So we're getting the National Guard out there to help them. But the key term here, these 2 words here, the regular forces, which we're going to see that the majority here is going to twist that in a way that is unsettling to Alito and Thomas, as well as me. The United States District Court for the Northern District of Illinois entered a temporary restraining order barring the federalization deployment of the Guard in Illinois. So they basically told Trump, we hate you, go jump in a lake. You can't have the National Guard here. And so did the Seventh Circuit. They denied the government when they asked for a stay, and they told him what he can do with himself. The government asked this court to stay the district court order. After response and reply were filed, Justice Barrett referred the application to the courts, so we're all here. She oversees the Seventh Circuit, emergency applications, and that's why we're here. What did we do? We told the parties file supplemental letter briefs on an issue that the district court had addressed, but the parties' initial briefs had not. So the initial briefs didn't even talk about a particular issue, but we thought there was an issue that the petitioners, the state of Illinois, we think that there's grounds that they could have relied on that they didn't really bring up so much. This is one of the things that we're going to see Justice Alito and Justice Thomas make a big deal about. That
you classify this as a system failure?
Excuse me for a second. I'm not sure what
the system failed this young man with this particular incident.
Let me just close a couple of these tabs here, which are at risk of exploding on me the way that one just did. That was annoying. All right, I think I'm good. My apologies for that. Okay. So what I was saying is this. The petitioners, the state of Illinois, trying to get the court to remove the National Guard, they took a certain position with respect to like how they want to start their claim. And the justices of the Supreme Court did not think that was the best position for them to take. So instead, they said, hey, give us a whole different argument and present a legal brief on it. That's something that Alito and Thomas took issue with, because they're like, why is this court now telling them which arguments to raise? They didn't raise that argument at the district court level. It's not what the district court level was deciding on. Why are you giving them a brand new issue to be fighting on? And then saying, well, because of this new issue that the petitioners pretty much waived, because if you don't make a claim when you're coming forward to the court, if you do not assert a claim, that claim is deemed waived. You can no longer bring that claim. Whenever you come to court, one of the reasons that attorneys get nervous about filings is because there's a known and established element that when you have objective and you have a claim and you fail to raise a claim, that claim can be deemed waived. Like it's gone forever. So what Alito and Thomas will end up asking on this particular issue is, why are we asking for a supplemental letter about a brand new issue that they didn't bring before the district court? In other words, the Supreme Court itself, these justices on the Supreme Court who decide in favor of the state of Illinois, were giving them a brand new bite at an argument that they did not themselves make. And now you're going to basically find in their favor on the basis of that argument. You're almost litigating on their behalf, which is ridiculous. So, but they admit, Justice Barrett, they're saying, we directed the parties to file supplemental letter briefs on an issue the district court had addressed, but the parties' initial briefs had not. The meaning of the term regular forces in 12406. So they didn't fixate on regular forces. Everyone thought they understood what regular forces means, and all of a sudden, district court starts thinking, maybe regular forces means something else. And the Supreme Court says, maybe regular forces means something else. So we wanted to weigh in based on the definition of regular forces, not on other elements to how the statute operates. In a supplemental brief, the government argues that the term refers to civilian law enforcement officers, such as those employed by ICE or by the Federal Protective Service. So when we talk about regular forces, we mean, can the ICE officials do it on their own or not? Respondents, echoing the district court, maintain that the term refers to regular forces of the United States military. What? We conclude that the term regular forces in 12406 likely refers to the regular forces of the United States military. So we gave them this argument, and now we're going to say that's what it is. It's the military. That's what it is. It's referring to the military. So when they say here in 12406 that the president is allowed to call up the National Guard if he's unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States, this doesn't mean ICE. It doesn't mean the IRS, doesn't mean the EPA. It means specifically if the military itself is struggling, then you can carry out and have them come in. Then you can call up the National Guard. If it's not the military struggling, you cannot do it. I know that they're Supreme Court justices. I know that they're very, very intelligent individuals. I want to ask you, Justice Barrett and Justice Kavanaugh, and it's not Kavanaugh in case he concurs. And I want to ask you, Justice Roberts, and I'm not even going to bother asking you, Justices Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kagan, because I'm not going to waste my time there. Why would it say to give it so broadly to execute the laws of the United States? Why would the statute 12406 say unable regular forces to execute laws of the United States? Is the military ever about trying to protect the laws of the United States? Or are they about defending our borders? They're never looking to help the execution of laws of the United States. So why would you say regular forces is referring to the military when the military is never trying to do that? It is such a backward retardo read. It makes no sense at all. You have to basically be ignoring the end part of the sentence and trying to figure out, how can I reinterpret the term regular forces to try and just pretend that this term regular forces all of a sudden I was referring to like a militia or something. I don't even know what the hell it's talking about. Why would it be regular forces to execute the laws of the United States if it's not talking about general federal agents going about their business? It could be a freaking mail carrier. Okay? I don't care what it is. It could be someone part of protective services. It could be someone from DHS. It could be someone from the IRS. The idea is that federal laws are not able to be executed unless they get help from the National Guard. That's what it clearly is saying when it says to execute the laws of the United States, because the president is not merely assigned the task of protecting the borders of our country. The president is assigned the task of actually helping to ensure that the laws of the United States are being faithfully executed. That's what his job is. It's in the Constitution. That's what he's supposed to be doing. And that includes immigration. So why would you say that it's such a ridiculous read? So they limit this situation of 12406 to only places where the military is coming in, and the military can't do it without help from the National Guard. That's when he's able to call on the National Guard. What a ridiculous read by the majority of the justices. It's embarrassing. It's an embarrassing read. And it's a read that's so insane, even the petitioners themselves didn't come up with this argument, because they thought it's so stupid. It's such a stupid way to read this. Even they themselves were like, really? Really? We went on that? That sounds pretty crazy. Based on our stupid interpretation, means to call the Guard into active federal service under 12406, the president must be unable with the regular military to execute the laws of the United States. And because the statute requires an assessment of the military's ability to execute the laws, it likely applies only where the military could legally execute the laws. So since the military can't come in here, then you can't call in the National Guard. Such circumstances are exceptional. Under the Posse Comitatus Act, the military is prohibited from executing the laws. Well, Posse Comitatus Act is what tells you that your entire read here is stupid. It's the Posse Comitatus Act, which tells you that, hey, this is wrong. Your read is wrong. Are you all understanding why this is getting me so upset? Am I confusing any of you at all? I want to make sure every one of you understands how stupid this is. Once you have the Posse Comitatus Act saying that this is just about that the military is not supposed to be doing stuff with respect to making sure on a domestic level, well, then reading that part of 12406 to pretend that 12406 is applying to the military doesn't make any sense. Because they're not trying to get the military's not trying to get the execution of laws in the United States. This is such a retarded read. It makes no sense at all. I'm sorry. These justices, I don't know what the heck, like how twisted into knots do you have to be? And which justices that do this? Of course, it's the ones on the left, and it's the establishment ones. Like, oh no, we don't like the idea of him calling the National Guard. We don't like that. How many presidents have called on the National Guard? It's happened many, many times. So before the president can federalize the Guard under 1246, he likely must have statutory constitutional authority to execute the laws with the regular military and must be unable with those forces to perform that function. Where is that example of where they're able to do this? Where? What a stupid claim this is. What hypothetical are you coming up with? Where would 12406 operate? To be executing laws in the United States rather than defending the country from an invasion. If it said, that if he's unable to defend the country from invasion without help from them, oh, okay, then I get it. And I'm like, oh, well, that's what it's for. Stupid people. At this preliminary stage, government has failed to identify a source of authority that would allow the military to execute the laws in Illinois, which is the proper way of pronouncing that state. The president has not invoked a statute that provides an exception to the Posse Comitatus Act. Instead, he relies on inherent constitutional authority that, according to the government, allows him to use the military to protect federal personnel and property. The government also claims, consistent with the long-standing view of the executive branch, that performing such protective functions does not constitute executing the laws within the meaning of the Posse Comitatus Act. Of course it's not. There's a difference between them being the ones to round up people, the National Guard being the ones to round up people, versus protecting the people who are rounding up people. It's really that simple. If that is correct, it's hard to see how performing these functions could constitute executing the laws. It's very easy to understand. Look, yesterday we were talking about those paramedics who were unable to get into the Capitol Hill autonomous zone to treat a kid. So they really needed police to go in there with them and protect them. How is this any different? This is so stupid. So yeah, if the police had gone in with the paramedics and then paramedics treated them, are the police the ones who are treating him? No, they're just enabling and creating a situation that enable others to do their job, which is exactly what 12406 seems to be contemplating. C.A. Zarvialina Health. Thus, at least in this posture, the government has not carried its burden to show that 12406 permits the president to federalize the Guard in the exercise of inherent authority to protect federal personnel and property in Illinois. We need not and do not address the viewability of findings made by the president under 12406 or any other statute, and the application for a stay is denied, and they come into here with his concurrence. I don't care about his concurrence. I was bored by it. So we're not going to bother with Kavanaugh's concurrence because the entire logic of what they're presenting here is so unduly illogical. But I did enjoy some of Alito's dissent, and that's where we're going next. Justice Alito, with whom Justice Thomas joins, dissenting. In our adversarial system of adjudication, we follow the principle of party presentation. This is the argument that I was telling you about of like, they didn't make this argument about regular forces. The whole regular forces thing that you're fixating on, they didn't make that argument. If a party passes up what seems to be a promising argument, we do not assume the role of advocate. You don't start feeding them potentially winning arguments. Instead, we normally decide the questions that the parties choose to present. You tell us what your best claim, you think your best claim is, and we'll tell you if you win. We're not going to tell you what arguments to make. In this case, the court has unnecessarily and unwisely departed from standard practice. It raised an argument that respondents weighed below, and it now rules in respondents' favor on that ground. So you gave them a new argument that they waived, they legally waived by not bringing it up, and now you're saying they win because of it. To make matters worse, the court reaches out and expresses tentative views on other highly important issues on which there is no relevant judicial precedent, on which we have received scant briefing and no oral argument. First, the court suggests that the principal statutory provision involving the case, 10 U.S.C. 12406, contains a restriction that has no grounding in the statutory text. Namely, that unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States actually means, it says those words. These are the words it says. It says unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the states, but doesn't really mean that. It actually means unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States for reasons other than a lack of lawful authority to do so. The court, in effect, adds new language to the text Congress enacted. Second, the court implicitly suggests that 12406 does not constitute an act of Congress within the meaning of the phrase of the Posse Comitatus Act 1385. That is a surprising conclusion, to say the least, meaning the Posse Comitatus Act says, unless there's a statute which gives you a basis to call people in to help, you can't call people in to help. Well, there is a statute. You know what that statute is? 12406. So once 12406 is there, that's the statute. Why are you ignoring 12406? You're saying, well, you can't do it because of Posse Comitatus. What do you mean you can't do it because of Posse Comitatus? That's standing up against 12406 is exactly what's telling you that Posse Comitatus does not apply here. I want to make sure you all understand me, because I know that, look, I don't want this. Some of you might be a little drunk because it's Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever it is. You might be a little drunk, so I want you to understand, okay? So you got the Posse Comitatus Act, which says that you can't militarize, you can't run military operations domestically here on American soil. You can't do that unless you're repelling an invasion. The Posse Comitatus Act says, with certain exceptions, and if Congress passes a law specifically allowing it, then you can do it. So the Supreme Court, the majority on the Supreme Court says, well, he can't do it because, Posse Comitatus Act. And Alito and Thomas look at me and says, but Congress passed a law. They passed 12406, which says in these cases he can do it. So Posse Comitatus doesn't even apply here. There's a general rule of Posse Comitatus. It says, except in these exceptions. And exceptions are anytime Congress says anything, anytime there's a statute written by Congress. And then when the Supreme Court looks at it, it's like, well, we have the statute written by Congress, but it can't mean that because Posse Comitatus means that. No, Posse Comitatus says we give way. Posse Comitatus doesn't apply here when there's a statute. Why are you pretending that 12406 doesn't exist when you're interpreting 12406? You're saying, 124, there's no statute. It is that very statute. Oh, we're going to get there, Rachel Boone. We are going to get there. We're going to get there. We're going there. We're going there. We really should hit that like button. It's a good thing. It's part of the, but if you haven't hit the like yet, I'm just going to pause here for a moment and say, please hit the like. Please, sir. It's Christmas. It's Christmas. Please, won't you hit the like button for me? Nice. So Alito, in his artistic way, saying, second, the court implicitly suggests that 12406 does not constitute an act of Congress within the meaning of the phrase Posse Comitatus Act. That is a surprising conclusion, to say the least. Third, the court expresses the tentative view that the phrase execute the laws of the United States in 12406 does not include protective functions. So even if the National Guard is properly deployed under the provision, it may not be given the task of preventing potentially lethal attacks on civilian federal law enforcement officers or the takeover or destruction of government facilities. So you're saying they can't protect a federal building? Federal courthouse? They're not able to do that? According to the court's apparent reasoning, National Guard members may enforce the immigration laws by, for example, arresting and prosecuting aliens, but may not perform the protective functions for which they are better suited. That, too, is surprising. This is, when he's saying that, every time he's saying that's surprising, that's Supreme Court justice speak for you're retarded. That's what it is, okay? Justice Alito just doesn't want to write the words, you're retarded. But that's what, when he's saying that, find that curious. That's surprising. That's his way of saying you're retarded. On top of all this, I'm breaking down in layman speak. That's my function here is to break it down in layman speak. So he writes the words, that too is surprising. But what he's trying to say is that is retard thinking. On top of all this, the court fails to explain why the president's inherent constitutional authority to protect federal officers and property is not sufficient to justify the use of National Guard members in the relevant area for precisely that purpose. I am not prepared at this point to express a definite view on these questions. Like, I'm not saying that he wins, but I have serious doubts about the correctness of the court's views. The way you're coming at it is insane. And I strongly disagree with the manner in which the court has disposed of this application, where you're feeding legal arguments that have been waived. Key statutory provision in this case provides in relevant part that whenever the president is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States, he may call into federal service members and units of National Guard of any state in such numbers as he considers necessary to execute those laws. In the lower courts, the parties agree that the phrase regular forces means civilian federal law enforcement officers, not military service members. So that's what they were talking about. In district court, they said they understood regular forces doesn't mean military. It means ICE. It means DHS. It might mean airports. I don't know. It might mean FAA. It might mean IRS. It could be HHS. I don't know. It could be the EPA. Let's say the EPA can't get in there because there's some hostile, crazy lunatic who controls an island. And he's an EPA, and he's basically dumping. Imagine this: some wealthy person who owns an island half a mile off the coast of America, and he's dumping toxins into the water. And he's got like real control over it. So, or even inbound, maybe not even off the coast, right? You can't. Someone down in the Bayou region who's dumping toxins into lakes, and he's a rich guy who owns a massive area there, owns 1,000 acres. Which some of you probably consider not massive, but it owns 1,000 acres there that are all walled off. EPA wants to go in there and can't get in there. So now what? They can't call the National Guard? How are they going to get their function done? Why would you think they couldn't? Respondents explicitly adopt this position in the district court. The court disagreed, but when the government challenged, so the respondents explicitly said, we think when they're regular forces means any federal agency. When the government challenged this holding the Seventh Circuit, respondents declined to defend the lower court's interpretation, and the Seventh Circuit did not reach the issue. So the Seventh Circuit didn't even talk about this. We're reviewing what the Seventh Circuit did. The government's stay application in this court asserted that any defense of the district court's interpretation had been waived, and respondents did not dispute either that assertion or the correctness of the government's contention that regular forces means federal civilian officers. So the district court mentioned some sort of thought that maybe regular forces means just military. The Seventh Circuit, when they looked at it, they didn't think of that at all, and the state of Illinois didn't think it meant that at all either. Which means it's waived. They're not making that claim. No one's making that claim. Who's making this claim? I don't know. 6 justices on the Supreme Court are the first ones to come up with this claim. First one since the district court level. No, they didn't even admit. And when these 6 justices came up and said, "Hey, we want to hear a briefing about whether or not regular forces could mean just military. It's a limitation. Only applies to just military. That they could support the military." So the government said they waived that. They didn't bring that up. No, we don't care. We don't think it's waived. Thus, the argument that regular forces means military was either waived or forfeited 3 times over. Ignoring this history, the court ordered the parties to file supplemental briefs on the meaning of regular forces. Respondents understandably rode with an argument suggested by the court and argued for the first time, and contrary to the position below, that regular forces means just military. The majority now accepts this 11th hour argument. Never mind that respondents have presented a contrary theory of the case in district courts. For the court, respondents' own arguments differently directed fell by the wayside, for they did not mesh with the court's own theory of the case. So all of a sudden, these justices are coming up with their own brand new theory. We should decide this application based on the party-presented controversy. What they came to us, that's what we decide, not giving them brand new arguments to bring up. That controversy sent on district courts holding that, contrary to the present determination, civilian federal law enforcement officers were in fact able to execute federal laws in the Chicago area. So their whole claim was not that Trump never has a right to do this. It was, in this particular circumstance, ICE didn't need National Guard help. If the court has doubts about the party's interpretation of the phrase regular forces, it could assume, for the sake of argument, that the party's interpretation was correct and proceed on that basis. The court has done that on many occasions. In this case, the court has no good reason to stray beyond the issues the parties chose to present. Why did you even bring up this whole question as to whether or not regular forces means just military and not any other forces of the executive branch? And based on those arguments, the court should grant the application. Meaning, based on the arguments that were presented below, the respondents, the petitioners lose, and the government should get their stay. There's no basis for rejecting the president's determination that he was unable to execute the federal immigration laws using civilian law enforcement resources at his command, including otherwise, district court likely committed both legal and factual error. It continues with, for Part B, I'll begin with the district court's understanding of the applicable law. The district court held that a president is unable to execute federal law within the meaning of 10 U.S.C. 1246 only if he's literally incapable of executing the law with regular forces. That interpretation is implausible. So the district court came up with their own theory to reject Trump. Why did the district court throw out Trump's National Guard? They said, you have to not be able to do anything at all in order for you to have, for 12406 to open the doorway for you to call the National Guard. If the term regular forces means federal civilian law enforcement officers, that interpretation would mean the president would have to conclude that immigration laws could not be enforced in Illinois, even if all other federal law enforcement activities were put on hold, and every federal law enforcement officer in the country, including every FBI, DEA, Secret Service, and ATF agent, every postal inspector and deputy marshal, and all law enforcement officers employed by other agencies were transferred to that area and assigned that task. In other words, the way that this ridiculous district court judge interpreted the statute was, look, if you want to call the National Guard, you can call on them. But they are a last resort. So before you can call on the National Guard, you have to tell ICE, don't just go to ICE members. Don't just go through all of ICE members and see whether you as a whole joint party can do it. The entire team of ICE in the entire country, whether you can go into Chicago and take Chicago. But you need to go in there, and you basically need to also say, hey, what about we have people working for us for the IRS? What about we have people who are working for the EPA? What if they helped us do customs immigration? What if we got some tax attorneys who work for the IRS? Maybe if we got them on board also to help us. And then once you exhaust all those possibilities and it still failed, that's when you can first call the National Guard. That's what the district court judge came up with, which Judge Alito obviously thinks is laughably stupid. The district court's interpretation would lead to an even more outlandish results if regular forces means the military. In that case, the president could not call up the National Guard to execute the laws in one locale unless all the nation's military forces, if transferred to the area in question, would be incapable of executing the laws. So if our entire Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, if they can't get it done, then we can call in order to do ICE. We have to call all of them in order to try and clear, in order to try and take care of removing illegals from Chicago. If they can't get it done, then you can call the National Guard. A less extreme interpretation of unable is much more reasonable and consistent with the way the term is commonly used. In everyday speech, a person may say that he or she is unable to perform an act simply because the adverse consequences of performing the act would be unacceptable. For example, an attorney might tell a trial court judge that he or she is unable to start a trial on a particular day because the attorney is scheduled to argue a case in this court on that date, and no other attorney could prepare for the argument in time. That attorney would be capable of showing up for the trial on the day in question, but the attorney's use of the term unable would be entirely natural. The district court's interpretation of unable was implausible for an additional reason. It seems to prohibit deployment of National Guard unless the president cannot execute the laws to even the slightest extent. The district court took what it termed a binary approach, ability or not, capability or not. As the Ninth Circuit has explained, however, Section 12406 cannot plausibly be read to mean that so long as some amount of execution of laws remains possible, a statute cannot be invoked. So basically, unless you can't get anything done at all, you have to exhaust all your military, and if you get any part done at all, you can't call the National Guard. Lunatic. It's more reasonable to interpret 12406 to mean the president is unable to execute laws when he is substantially impaired from doing so. District Court also erred in refusing to afford any deference to the president's determination that calling up the National Guard was needed to execute federal law. Basically said, I don't care what the president said. The most directly relevant Supreme Court precedent suggests that such determination must be accepted by the courts. In Martin v. Mott, a militia member argued, among other things, that the standard for calling up the militia under the law and enforcement time had not been met. Section 1 of the law governed that the militia, when the country is invaded or threatened with an invasion, and much like 12406, authorized use of militia when the execution of federal law is obstructed. Justice Story's opinion for the unanimous court held that the authority to decide whether the exigency has arisen belongs exclusively to the president. This is a very important thing. This is a very important thing going forward on this National Guard thing. This is a very, very important element. So let's pause here for a moment. I'm going to leave this bolded for a moment so you can understand the wide grant of discretion that the Supreme Court, all the way back in 1820, whatever, 1849, 1827, under Justice Story, gave recognition of the president's discretion in determining when there's an emergency. I pause that for a moment here to just get some holiday cheer. Let me just cover this. Soldier Prophet says National Guard was called in and helped end desegregation in schools across the South after resistance from the local population and government. Yep. After Brown versus Board of Education, Eisenhower called in the National Guard. It was the right call. J.H. Schwabach hitting me up with a fitty. As a Christian, I want to be your Santa, so I'm putting this under your tree. Oh, crap. That sounds very homo. No homo. Joe, no homo. Just be grateful. I'm grateful to you, my brother. Thank you so very much. I hope you and your family have a very Merry Christmas. And Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And that it's that the forthcoming year will be one of harmony between you and your missus, as well as with all your children, perfect health, wealth, and phenomenal personal growth. I joke around about it a lot on this show, but I actually the joke plays because I actually really mean it. Personal growth is awesome. So I'm very appreciative of you. Thank you, brother. Do a quick check over here, make sure I didn't miss anything. Joe, Trump should give the Supreme Court what they asked for and send the IRS, DEA, EPA, FBI, Secret Service, ECT, et cetera, to Illinois and enforce. It'd be funny. It'd be funny. His decision, the court held, is conclusive, and therefore application of the statute depends only on his own judgment and facts. Why is this so important? I'm going to pause here and now. I'm going to pause here and now in this. Why is this so important? because people have thoughts about this current situation here. They got thoughts as to what is now open and available to President Trump now that this decision has come out. Now, I want to go on record before we go any further. I was telling you this. When Trump first went into D.C., my personal opinion is I'm fine with him federalizing agents, like taking care of D.C., because that's a unique city which under federal control. I am also fine with him using ICE agents, with him using National Guard to protect ICE agents. I think that's proper. You're protecting personnel who are trying to help make America a better place. I do not want to see him federalizing the National Guard, like for general police keeping. I think that would be terrible abuse of his power. I don't think he should do that. But to protect ICE agents, totally down with that. 100%. Those men and women put their lives on the line and are doing an invaluable service. So, but there are some folks who are speculating that this decision has now opened up a new doorway for President Trump to actually take far more authoritarian steps. So let's check this out.
Initially recently said, look, I'm trying to enforce the laws with ICE agents, with federal law enforcement, and I can't do it, so I need to call the National Guard. But the statute says the president has to be unable to enforce the law with regular forces. What does regular forces mean? We don't know. The Supreme Court has never decided that question before yesterday. The Supreme Court now says regular forces means you have to try with the regular armed forces first before you can bring out the National Guard. So the unintended consequence here might be that the president is going to have to call the 82nd Airborne or the Marines or the 101st Airborne Division, as, for example, President Eisenhower did after Brown versus Board of Education in the South to enforce desegregation. President Trump might have to do that first in order to protect those federal buildings, those ICE agents. And then if they fail, he can then call out the National Guard.
Got it. J.B. Pritzker,
I don't read this decision that way. I do not read this decision the way that gentleman just read this decision. But let's go further.
Governor in the state of Illinois is saying this. Today is a big win for Illinois and American democracy. This is an important step in curbing the Trump administration's consistent abuse of power and slowing Trump's march toward authoritarianism. That's purely political. I think the president has obviously tried to work within the framework of the law as his legal eagles have seen it. 15 seconds or so. What happens from here? And I guess I answered my own question when I say I'm not surprised by Pritzker's response, and I guess you aren't either.
I'm not. He's, of course, injecting a lot of heated political rhetoric. And
he's a blowhard, and that he's doing what blowhards do. He's doing exactly what you expect him to do because he's a freaking blowhard.
To this, but what's going to happen? Trump will, of course, now have the right to go to the Supreme Court on the full merits. As you said, Kevin, this is just preliminary. He may be able to get the full court to reverse this preliminary decision. But second, and I think more worrisome, is the Supreme Court is essentially inviting President Trump to send regular armed troops and deploy those to Chicago and Los Angeles before he can send the National Guard. I think a governor would rather have.
Wait, one more time. Give me that one more time, brother. What were you saying? Let me take this back from the top here, what he's saying. I sort of zoned out for a second.
To this, but what's going to happen? Trump will, of course, now have the right to go to the Supreme Court on the full merits. As you said, Kevin, this is just preliminary. He may be able to get.
Yeah, okay, but it could take a year before you go before the Supreme Court.
The full court to reverse this preliminary decision. But second, and I think
you have to go through the entire thing first, the lower courts. His administration can be over by the time this works its way up there.
I think more worrisome is the Supreme Court is essentially inviting President Trump to send regular armed troops and deploy those to Chicago and Los.
Oh, actually, technically, on the motion, this is an emergency application. So I guess to overturn the application on a full thing, I guess he could win. It's unlikely they're going to change their minds, though.
Los Angeles before he can send the National Guard. I think a governor would rather have National Guard troops than the 82nd Airborne and the Marine Corps patrolling the streets of Chicago.
Yeah, especially when you think of.
I don't know who this guy is. Maybe you guys know who this guy is. Maybe you know who he is. Denny, you know who he is? Do you know who he is? Any of you? I'm very curious who he is. Nick Sordo wrote this as Democrat lawfare against President Trump may backfire, resulting in Marines being sent to Chicago instead of National Guard. SCOTUS said regular forces must be used for the Guard. Marines are regular forces. JP Pritzker messed up. Everyone's very excited about this.
Recently said
32,000 people are all very excited about this. I don't read the decision the way this guy's reading it at all. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. John Yoo, that's his name? Now I want to check out. Let me see if I can find John Yoo. Make sure that's him. Find out who the heck this John Yoo is. Because we read this decision. It is John Yoo, American professor. John Yoo, John Chun Yoo, South Korean-born American legal scholar and former government official who is the Emmanuel S. Heller Professor of Law at U of C, Berkeley. While serving in George Bush administration, became known for his legal opinions concerning executive power, warrantless wiretapping, and the Geneva Conventions. Okay. No. Okay, this is stupid. What he said here was kind of stupid. So I want to disabuse any of the notion that what he just said is actually something Trump can or will do. I do not expect him to come up with such a ridiculous interpretation of what they wrote. Okay, what they wrote, we read this together. I don't know if this guy didn't bother reading it. I don't know if he knows what the heck he's talking about. That's not what they wrote. What they wrote is not that. I'm I'd be really happy to give you good news that he's trying to give what he perceives a Fox audience wanting to hear. That is an insane read of what this decision of an insane decision. This is a stupid decision, but you cannot make up what the decision says. The decision is pretty clear. That does not say anything like what John Yoo says in that interview. That, like, first, you have to go to the military. No, we read this together. This is from the part of the decision where the majority decision. Okay. And what they said here was not, oh, first you have to bring in the military, then you can bring in the National Guard if they failed. What they said is, specifically, they say that regular forces in 12406 means military. And then they said that because the statute requires an assessment of the military's ability to execute the laws, it likely applies only where the military could legally execute the laws. So only if the military could legally execute the laws, that's the only time you could ever come to the National Guard. But this is not a circumstance where the military could come in. And that's why at this preliminary. And that's why they say before the president can federalize a guard, first you have to have statutory or constitutional authority to execute the laws with the regular military. But he doesn't have that here because of the Posse Comitatus Act, because under the Posse Comitatus Act, the military cannot be executing laws. So Posse Comitatus stops him. Comitatus. Posse Comitatus stops him from being able to use the military. And because the military can't come in here, well, then you don't get to the next step, which is when the military is unable to do it. But they're not saying the military is allowed to go in there. They're saying under the Posse Comitatus Act, the military is prohibited from executing the laws. So I don't know what the heck John Yoo's talking about here. This decision doesn't open up for the military to come in here. This decision specifically says under the Posse Comitatus, Military is prohibited from executing the laws. Except in cases and under circumstances expressly authorized by the Constitution or Act of Congress. So, Alito says this would be an act of Congress, 12406. So you shouldn't be applying posse comitatus here because this trumps posse comitatus. Posse comitatus says we give way when there's an act of Congress. So that's how Alito reads it. I don't know what the hell John Yu's talking about here. What the heck are you talking about, John Yu? I don't know what you're talking about, John Yu. Doesn't make any sense. They expressly say that under the posse comitatus, you cannot bring them in here. And before you can bring in National Guard, you have to be able to bring in the military and then the military to fail. Now, it's a stupid, retarded way of reading it, but that is what they wrote here. So there's no way that anyone who's a philosopher of law could read this to say that, well, now he's authorized to bring the military in here. They say, no, you're not able to bring the National Guard in here because you're never allowed to get the military in here. In other words, what this decision is saying is, in order for Trump to be able to bring in the National Guard, first, you have to bring in the military. And then, when they fail, you can bring in the National Guard. But in this case, you're not allowed to bring in the military because of the National Guard. So, to get your, because of posse comitatus. So, that's why you have to send home the National Guard. What does John Yu say? Well, I guess that means you can bring in the military. No, they say you're never allowed to bring in the military in this circumstance. And because you can never bring in the military here, that's why you can't bring in the National Guard. I don't know what the hell John Yu's reading. What are you reading? Seriously, what are you reading? Dude, are you drunk? This is such a stupid read. That's not at all what it says. It doesn't say anything of the kind. The guy goes on TV here, some professor who used to work for President Bush. I don't know what the hell's going on here. Am I the only one who actually just can sit here reading plain words? I don't know, who's coming up with this philosophy? Who are these scholars? Sitting here thinking, it's like I feel as if there's like 10 people on the planet who can actually understand what a sentence structure says. So stupid. So sadly, because this is a stupidly illogical take on the statute, but this is their take. And once you accept that this is their take, this is not opening the door for the military to come in there, the 82nd Airborne to come in here. Quite the contrary. We're saying because the 82nd Airborne could never come in here, that's why the National Guard cannot come here. So to try to read this as saying this is an opening for the 82nd Airborne to come in here, you have to be an idiot. I'm sorry, John Yu. But you read this very, very poorly. Maybe you did it fast. Maybe there was some sort of emergency circumstances. But this is it's an asinine read of what this decision says. It does not open the doorway for the military to come in. Doesn't do it. However, that does not mean that Trump is not without recourse. I'm simply saying John Yu's method is stupid and wrong and flawed. And it's a non-starter. So, but my point is, if you think that he's going to be sending the 82nd Airborne into downtown Chicago, that's not happening. It would be thoroughly illegal, and there's nothing in this decision which would provide an opening for him to all of a sudden bring them in there. So that's first and foremost. But that doesn't mean that there's not other potential here. And this is something we should go back to something I skipped past. I skipped past Kavanaugh's concurrence. I skipped past it because, frankly, I was annoyed at him. Mm-hmm. All right. And that is the Insurrection Act. I'm going to just jump to page 5 of Kavanaugh's concurring opinion, where he writes, the court's legal interpretation, as I understand it, could lead to potentially significant implications for future crises that we cannot now foresee. Consider a hypothetical example. Suppose a mob rapidly gathers outside the U.S. courthouse in Philadelphia in response to an unpopular decision or to influence the outcome of a pending matter. Suppose also that the mob is threatening to storm the courthouse and attack the federal judges, prosecutors, and other personnel inside and damage or burn down the building, thereby preventing the execution of federal law. We saw this happen in Portland, right? So assume something like that's happening. Suppose further the U.S. military forces cannot readily mobilize to deploy to the site in time, that the local police and federal court security officers are outnumbered, and that the president wants to federalize National Guard units to protect the courthouse and the judges, prosecutors, and other personnel. Under the court's order today, even in those circumstances, the president presumably could not federalize the National Guard under 12406. So he doesn't like this. Kavanaugh doesn't like the way that this decision is worded because of that. And he has a little footnote here, footnote 2. Let's go down to footnote 2. As I read it, the court's opinion does not address the president's authority under the Insurrection Act. Ooh, what do we have here? Section 10 U.S.C. 252-253. Moreover, court opinion does not address the report to disturb the president's long asserted Article 2 authority to use the U.S. military as distinct from the National Guard to protect federal personnel and property and thereby ensure the execution of federal law. So Kavanaugh is reading this like you is reading it, like John Yoo is reading it, because he's like, well, you can use it to protect federal personnel. Well, which federal personnel? Is it just federal judges or is it ICE personnel? As Professor Goldsmith has succinctly explained, the protective power is the president's inherent or independent Article 2 power to protect federal personnel, property, and functions. The key point is that the president can assert the protective power without reliance on Section 12406. He can deploy regular armed forces without any need to federalize the Guard. Presidents often have. So Kavanaugh is reading this, to be fair, in a retarded way that John Yoo is reading it. This doesn't make sense to me, his read, because what they wrote doesn't seem to be consistent with this. But Kavanaugh seems to understand these justices the way John Yoo does, because he's like, you can bring them in here. President Trump holds the legal cards on the use of the military in the domestic sphere, executive functions. One apparent ramification of the court's opinion is that it could cause the president to use the U.S. military more than the National Guard to protect federal personnel and property in the United States. So this is where John Yoo fixated on. I think that Kavanaugh, all due respect, Justice Kavanaugh, this is not what they wrote. How do you not read it that way? This is the people you're concurring with, and you have no idea what the heck they wrote? I don't even know what the heck's wrong with it. I don't understand. I don't understand these people. That's just not what's written in the opinion. It's not what's written in the opinion. So, look. It's very confusing. I think that I understand exactly where Alito and Thomas are coming from, saying you're not supposed to be raising brand new arguments, and your read of regular forces and the way you're limiting regular forces to only be talking about military sounds insane. for one reason or another, Kavanaugh goes along with them on this idiocy, but says, I don't like it being so broad because you could bring in the military here. Because I think they are saying that you can bring in the military. What? That's not what's written. That's not what's written there. That's not what's written there. So I don't know what's going to happen. But I think he does. The reason what I brought up earlier that I thought was significant is he's the one who has the authority to declare what's a dire emergency, which means he could invoke the Insurrection Act. He could say there's an insurrection happening here. My ICE agents are trying to go out there and trying to enforce immigration law, and there's an insurrection of all these lunatics who are standing in front of the trucks there, laying down in front of the driveway and surrounding vehicles. That's an insurrection. And that's an emergency. And on that basis, I'm declaring this an insurrection and sending in the National Guard. So, this was a loss for Trump. But I don't think that this in any way limits his rights on the Insurrection Act. And in theory, on the Insurrection Act, I think he might even be able to call in the military. Right? So National Guard or military? I should pull up 10 U.S.C. 252. 252. That was what I wanted. Whenever the president considers that unlawful obstructions, combinations, or assemblages or rebellion against the authority of the United States makes it impractical to enforce the laws of the United States in any state or by the ordinary use of judicial proceedings, he may call into federal service of such militia of any state, which is National Guard, and use such of the armed forces, which is the military, as he considers necessary to enforce those laws or to suppress the rebellion. So this is the corner they're backing him into. I think they want to back him into this corner because this way they could say, he's a fascist! He's a fascist! That's what they wanted to. But I would respond back, he's no more a fascist than Eisenhower was when he protected little black kids going to school. Instead of protecting little black kids going to school, he's protecting ICE agents who are trying to keep our country safe from an invasion of illegal aliens. So that's what I got for you on this story. But I'll keep you apprised as there are more developments. I'm seeing a whole bunch of love that got sent my way, and I want to express my gratitude. Let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got going on. Oh, I missed this. Sorry. Oh, guys. Since the local and state law enforcement will not aid, participate, back up, or join any federal immigration law enforcement with any, and will not allow the federal government to enforce federal law effectively, the National Guard can be used to fill the vacuum left by local and state law enforcement left. Well, I agree with you. Under 10 U.S.C. 252. But I think he has to declare that. Thank you for the generous chat, my brother. I got criticized yesterday. I don't thank people enough. So thank you. And Merry Christmas, all guys. Joe, do you like the movie 8 Crazy Nights? It's one of my favorite holiday movies. I don't think I've ever seen it. Who's in 8 Crazy Nights? It sounds like an Adam Sandler movie. That's just a song. It is Adam Sandler. It's a cartoon. I've never seen it. So, no. Is that about Christmas or Hanukkah? I've never seen that before, so I don't know. Now I'm curious. Now you got me all curious, Wellesley. Chef Davis says, breaking news, shots fired at Nakatomi Plaza, possible hostage situation at a Christmas party in L.A. I don't think that's true. I think I'm being pranked. I got a feeling that sounds a lot like a different movie. Just totally a Christmas movie. Oh wow, true. What the hell? What the hell? Straight out of Die Hard. Beverly Hills police are responding to reports of gunfire inside Nakatomi Plaza. If they get that guy from Family Matters, that officer Family Matters down there, man. Inside Century City high-rise owned by the International Nakatomi Corporation, where a private holiday gathering was underway on Christmas Eve, according to preliminary information, a group of heavily armed individuals forced their way. This has to be a joke. This is totally a joke. Oh, it is by Hans Gruber. That's pretty funny. Yeah, it's well done. Authorities have identified the group responsible for Tuesday night's violent takeover at Nakatomi Plaza's international criminal organization led by Hans Gruber, according to multiple law enforcement sources. Gruber, European national, long history of carving people's hearts out with a spoon and working as a double agent against Voldemort, as well as other international financial crimes, is believed to have orchestrated the assault with a team of heavily armed operatives who infiltrated the building during a private corporate holiday reception. Officials say the group gained control of the upper floors shortly after 9 p.m., disabling security systems, locking down elevators, and forcing dozens of party attendees into secure conference rooms. This was reported today. This is pretty funny. While the group initially claimed to be politically motivated, federal authorities now say the narrative appears to be deliberate misdirection. Investigators believe suspects were targeting sensitive corporate assets housed within the buildings, including restricted vault areas tied to Nakatomi Corporation's international holdings. Intelligence officials describe Gruber as highly educated, multilingual, and meticulous in his planning. His criminal history reportedly spans several European countries, with past investigations linking him to sophisticated financial thefts, art crimes, coordinated operations designed to exploit corporate infrastructure rather than traditional civilian targets. This is not a smash and grab, one federal source said. This is someone who studies systems and waits for the right moment. Situation remains fluid as negotiators attempt to establish direct communication with Gruber, who has thus far remained largely silent. Law enforcement sources confirm that the suspects are exceptionally well equipped, carrying military-grade weapons and explosives, raising concerns about both hostage safety and structural damage to the building. If only there was someone there, someone who is smart enough and clever enough and brave enough to fight them off. That's what we really need. That's the only way you can take care of this whole hostage situation. Adding to the complexity of the response are persistent reports of a lone individual moving throughout the tower. Oh, see, maybe there is someone. Apparently engaging the suspects intermittently. Authorities have declined to identify the person or confirm their status, but multiple sources acknowledge that gunfire has erupted in areas not under the suspect's direct control. Whoa, this is a very exciting story. Several officers monitoring internal security audio reported here would sound like shouted expletive over the building's radio system, including one phrase described as yippee-ki-yay mother effer. However, officials caution that stress, echoes, and cross-channel interference may be contributing to confusion. There are there's an unknown actor inside the building, one official said. That changes everything. Outside, downtown LA remains on lockdown. Streets surrounding the plaza have been closed. Nearby buildings evacuated. Airspace restricted as helicopters continue surveillance. Emergency medical teams are staged nearby, though officials have not yet confirmed any fatalities. You guys want me to keep reading this story? Or it's a little bit of a diversion from what I was covering. You think I should keep reading this story, or should I move on from this? Because it's not what I said I was going to be covering tonight. So, oh, guys, hit me up. Thank you very much for the little holiday gift there from you, guys. These states are not allowing their local and state elites to stop civilian disturbances caused by immigration enforcement. Then the president can also federalize the National Guard to address civil unrest, particularly when state authorities are unwilling to maintain order. You're preaching to the choir, my brother. Preaching to the choir. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And by the way, to do otherwise is to encourage these people to go out there and do it more. To do otherwise is basically to say, oh, well, we're helpless. We're helpless to carry out our federal functions. What can we do? There's nothing we can do. Oh, well. To do otherwise, it would be terrible. Terrible. It's such a terrible precedent. It's a sign of being a beta. A weak leader. Oh, what can I do? There's all these people standing in the way. And he's not. That's why he's not standing. That's why he's pushing harder, and he should. Brian Oldenkamp spreading the Christmas cheer. Bringing in 20 new members of the following. Following 20 people brought into the following, courtesy of Brian Oldenkamp. That would include people brought into the following, courtesy of Brian. That was an echo. That would include. Gotta scroll up. Marge, when you hear your name, please express your gratitude to Brian Oldenkamp for bringing you into a gathering of like-minded individuals who are seeking greater personal growth through community, unity, learning, and thinking. That would include you, Margie E2G3, E2G no 3. Segan Rose 4978, Distracted C, Chad EHS, Brit Fleck 22623, Ardua, that all sheer 6786, Angela, oh yeah, she's an old school one. Jeannie B, KG811, Pup 63, Whoa Basil, KR33106. Welcome to the following. Mamasaurus Rex. Welcome to the following. Jonathan Conklin. Kobe's 273. Roarcast. Some guy from Utah. We got some guy from Utah now in the following. As well as Hallie Picciani. Hallie. I know it's not Hallie. It's Haley. Haley, how are you? Haley, who like... She's like my secret Santa. She's very, very discreet, Haley. She's very discreet. But she quietly gifts me stuff in ways that I'm not really able to even respond or express my gratitude. But I just want you to know I appreciate you, Haley. Avatar Sith and Zero FUX. My guy, Zero FUX. Welcome to the following. Please be aware that I am not at all the leader of the following. I am just a host. But I thank you, and please express your gratitude if you heard your name to Brian Oldenkamp for bringing you on in. And I also want to welcome on into the following, Straight Edge. Welcome, my brother. Brian is in the house. When he stops by the house, it's like a poof. When Brian comes to the house. Oh, guys, we got a man on the inside, Detective John McClain from the NYPD. He can do it. Well, that was... I got the utmost confidence in Detective McClain. Soldier of Providence also coming on in there, dropping 10. 10 new members of the following brought in courtesy of my good friend Anthony, a soldier of Providence. When you hear your name, please make sure you express gratitude to Soldier of Providence, bring you on into the greatest organization for your personal growth. Because look, we don't always get it right, but we'll let you know how confident we are. And if we make a mistake, we'll own it. That would include you, Demon J3450, Jean Muntz, Kerry Schenkel. Come on down to the following: Augustus Tiberius, La Spicy Latina 843, Jordan 73, W4Q, Kimberly C 949, Tater and Salad, Brandon Butler. That's it. Yeah, Brandon Butler L. And Dominus Dank. Welcome to the following. Please bear in mind that the following is not at all a cult, despite the name. Everyone gets very confused. It's not at all a cult type of cult. There's no tracksuits that are mandatory. No trainers. There's no goat sacrifices. No squirrel mutilations. No spaceships. No Kool-Aid. Mild farm work. Very mild farm work. No throwing virgins into volcanoes. No dancing around bonfires in the middle of the forest while chucking off your clothing to the beat of a tom-tom. It's not at all a cult. Type of cult. So, welcome. I had a couple of other things I wanted to cover with you guys here. One or two other things. Speaking of the Supreme Court, Trump is praying the Supreme Court will give him what he wants on tariffs. Saying tariffs are great. Sponsor for the Great USA Economic Numbers just announced, and they will only get better. Also, no inflation and great national security. Pray for the U.S. Supreme Court President DJT. After a blowout 4.3% GDP number was just announced. That is 4.3% is amazing. For one quarter, you're talking about 16% growth. That's amazing. That is amazing. That's almost unbelievable. But I don't think he's going to be able to keep those tariffs. So I just wanted to share that with you there. And I just had one more thing here. I am going to start to open the phone lines up. I promised I was going to open the phone lines up. Try and figure out what to do with these 50s that came in here. We're very, very close. And then I got those gifted memberships also. We did get those gifted memberships. All right. I'm going to open the phone lines up. If you want to talk to me about your holiday, talk to me about the law, talk to me about Supreme Court or John Yoo or Justice Kavanaugh, 8 Crazy Nights, whatever it is you want to talk to me about, or just, your whole season's greetings type of thing, I am going to open the phone lines up. The number to call is 972-454-0703. That is 972-454-0703. You should be hitting the like and subscribe buttons right around now. It's gonna be in a banner that you're gonna see here, running across the bottom of the screen in aqua, where it tells you what the phone number is. It's 972-454-0703. And anyone who calls in, I guess, wants to say hello, and I'll say hello back. That's the way it works, and we'll see how it goes from there. We'll see what happens from. That's how the first part of the conversation goes. but I'm gonna try and keep the phone lines moving. Trying to keep them moving. And if you have a question, some sort of personal issue, something you want to get off your chest, by all means. Well, I'm waiting for that. As that goes out to the world, let me do a double check, make sure I didn't miss anything in the ghetto, because ghetto announcements don't really come to me so easy. They don't come to me so easy. I feel like I remember missing a chat. Did I miss a chat? I think I missed one from Shia Eisenman, which makes me feel like a jerk. Why don't I see it now? I definitely saw it. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I definitely missed it. Where was it? That's so weird. I don't know where it went. I'm not seeing it now. It was here and then it disappeared on me. I'm not going to be able to find it now. I'm sorry about that. But he said something about gifting me. He said something about that. When I was going through the chats, I don't see it now. I don't know why it's gone from here. So sorry about that, Mr. Eisenman. Sorry about that, my brother. I know it was here. I definitely saw it, but I can't find it now. And I don't know why it disappeared on me. So there you go. What else did I want to talk to you about? There was one more thing from Scott Jennings I wanted to share with you all. But if you want to call in while I'm doing this, it's fine. The number again is 972-454-0703. This is Scott Jennings taking a nice little clap at Nancy Pelosi, which I thought was awesome. Nancy Pelosi set to retire after nearly 40 years. She's not retiring just yet. You got another year of this woman.
She made them really angry, but at the end of the day, there was often grudging respect for some of the things skills that she brought to the table.
Oh yeah, there were people who respected her legislative ability and being a political boss. I mean, she was the boss of her conference.
Nancy D'Alessandro.
And there is for political operators a lot of respect for that. I tell you this, I don't know how much we raised over the years off of sending out fundraising appeals based on Nancy Pelosi, but it was a metric butt ton. I'm telling you right now, putting Nancy Pelosi in fundraising mail or fundraising emails would always produce. And by the way, it's not often that someone can become a titan of both Washington and Wall Street. Republicans will remember her as one of the most successful and prolific.
Give me a phone call.
Call from
Parker, Richard Parker.
To accept.
Richard, hold on 1 minute, right?
You got it.
How much we raised over the years off sending out fundraising appeals based on Nancy Pelosi, but it was a metric.
I need you to mute yourself, brother.
What's that?
I need you to mute yourself, okay? Like, mute the thing in the background, okay? Give me, because I just want to finish playing this clip, all right?
Okay, you got it. You got
Thanks,
it, man.
Thanks, brother.
No problem.
Republicans will remember her as one of the most successful and prolific day traders. She beat the S&P 500 by 559% in her stock portfolio. She's worth a lot of money. She did an amazing job. So what a blow for the financial houses today.
Look at this guy over here, sitting in his hoity-toity. He's sitting there looking like his butt is clenching. You can see he's just clenching. He's like, yeah, because she's corrupt. She's an insider trader, obviously. And Scott Jennings throwing a knock at Nancy Pelosi.
On Wall Street, I'm sure they're mourning.
Just getting in an elbow, right?
Yeah, really trying to get in some opposition research.
That's a classic Scott Jennings, by the way. Like, I'm beginning to view what you just did there as like the Scott Jennings on TV.
I want Trump to put her in charge of the Social Security Administration. We could all retire in 6 months. If we
Put her in charge of Social Security. She's so good at it. She's so good at guessing which stocks are going to do well.
Let this lady manage our portfolios.
Do you know what I think is, for me was, I
Yeah. Taking on Nancy Pelosi and crooked Nancy Pelosi and her insider trading. Good evening, Mr. Parker. How you doing?
Good evening, Joe. Just watching the chat, and everybody was afraid to call in, so I figured I'd break the ice.
Why are people afraid to call? Why would anyone be afraid to call in? I'm like the
I don't
nicest.
know. Everybody was
nicest
talking
person I
about it.
know. Yeah. Well,
Nobody was pulling the trigger, so I figured might as well get in there, get them warmed up.
Did you have a nice Christmas dinner tonight?
I'd rather not talk about it, but
all right.
No. You know how I am, brother.
Okay.
But I did want to. I see shit, and it's not no crazy. I see dead people or nothing like that, but I see stuff that most people don't see, and I'd like to get your opinion on something. Like the first time, for example, I remember in 2020, the day that Bush Jr. announced that he was running for president, I went to work the next day and was telling everybody that would listen, the Saddam Hussein better hope he don't win. And sure as shit, later on, they dug him out of a spider hole.
Wait, you mean 2000, not 20? You said 2020, but you mean 2000.
Oh, I meant 2000. Correct. I meant 2000.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the next time it happened was in 2001. Now, when did you realize in 9/11? When did you realize we were under terrorist attack?
I realized we were under a terrorist attack. I was on a bus going from Queens to Manhattan. I had a deposition that morning in Midtown Manhattan. I wasn't headed to downtown, but I was headed to Midtown. I was on an express bus. I had to get in there by 10 a.m. that day. So I took so basically express bus would take like 45 minutes to an hour. And I was on an express bus heading in when we heard about the first tower being hit, and people on the bus, strangers, were talking to each other when the first tower got hit. And we were all like, how does something like that happen? How do you have pilot error like that? And people were pointing out that it's illegal for planes to fly over Manhattan, which would make it seem like almost impossible for something like that to happen. And when the second plane hit, that's when we were like, okay, this is definitely a terrorist attack.
My point exactly.
What's your point?
I remember I was on my way to work because I'm the West Coast. Okay. So it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. As soon as I heard that first plane hit the World Trade Center, I stopped at a convenience store to grab my snacks for lunch, 10 o'clock break. Walked in the store and told everybody we're under a terrorist attack, because I knew of Captain Sully. New York is a freaking island. There's water all around there, and Captain Sully crashed his plane in the water. I knew immediately that if a passenger plane hit the World Trade Center, that was intentional.
The Sully incident, that was before or after 9/11? I thought that was after.
It was after, maybe.
Oh, now I'm curious.
I knew.
I remember. My recollection. I could be wrong. Now I want to check that out. When I'm gonna Google this. When did Captain Sully land plane in water? Oh, now I want to check this out. I remember it being after. Yeah, that was in January 15, 2009.
Okay, my bad. Well,
that's okay, brother.
My geography, I knew there was an island out there.
Yes.
You're going to hit the tallest building in New York. I knew that was intentional. Anyway, so I saw something a couple of weeks back when Trump met with G.
Okay.
And I watched a PBD podcast. They had it. They were covering it. That's where I saw it. And then they have this Connect where you can pay $25 and you call them and text them something and they'll answer your. So I saw that and saw something that nobody saw because they were laughing like Trump was a man. Trump was a man. And I sat down that night and wrote a Connect to the what's his name, the Jew that's on the show. He used to be a liberal, now he's a big Trump supporter, Adam. And he thought I was crazy. I mean, they showed it at 9 o'clock that morning. I connected him probably at 12 my time, and then he responded at 5 o'clock that afternoon, saying, and I'd asked him to have Patrick look over and see if he saw what I saw, and he said, "Oh, I can't ask Patrick to cover something we did last week." And I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? It was this morning." But anyway, Patrick David show was Trump versus Z, the handshake. Patrick David's podcast, and you look for the one that's titled Trump and Z, and then Putin's nuclear warning.
Okay.
And then you watch from 93 minutes and 40 seconds to 46 minutes, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Wait, you said from 93 minutes and 40 seconds till 46 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Okay. So wait,
Not much time.
You're asking me to pull up here. I gotta go into. You're asking me. I didn't realize, I thought this was homework. I didn't realize this was something you're asking me to do right now. So I'm gonna go to Patrick McDavid.
If you're busy, we'll let someone else go.
No. You got me started down this rabbit hole here.
I want to see if you see what I see.
I doubt that, but it could happen. Who knows?
He said he never called.
It's quick.
So you're saying this is Patrick Bet-David.
It had to have been like 2-3 weeks ago.
It was one of his lives?
What's that?
It was one of his live shows?
Yes. One of his podcasts. He does a podcast Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays.
Okay.
It was on a Friday. It was on a Friday show. I don't know if that'll help you, but it was definitely a Friday show.
It's not going to help me.
It's when Trump met Z, and they shook hands.
Brian's auto pen terminated. Camo leaked. When Donnie calls Trump Lee Zeldin. You don't mean Lee Zeldin, right? You don't mean Lee. Oh, here it is. Trump and Z, Putin's nuclear warning.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. So you want me to go from 94 minutes to
43, 40.
43:40
for a couple minutes.
Well, this is the most replayed portion of it.
Yeah.
So 43:40. All right, I'm gonna watch this. When you say a couple minutes, you mean like 7 minutes or like 2?
No, 2 minutes to
Okay.
46 minutes.
Okay, fine. I'm starting it now.
Trump, China. Trump rates meeting with China. Xi, 12 out of 10.
Nice.
Guys, it was that good on the meeting that took place, which is great. Okay. The fact that they're having a meeting is incredible. Rob, can you go to the meeting when they're shaking hands and they're kind of first, is this it? The first time? Okay. This is when they just visit each other. I think this is 2 days ago. Go ahead, Rob, if you can play that clip. Go ahead.
The president of the People's Republic of China.
Did I give you the wrong time stamp?
Look at that grip, Pat. Look at that grip. Oh, it's getting tighter.
There
it is.
It's hurting my hand. It's hurting
And
my
we're
hand.
going to have a very successful meeting, I have no doubt. But he's a very tough
You see it?
negotiator. That's not good.
Remember how Trump
You know what?
manhandled Macron?
That is Trump expressing his dominance.
No, watch his face.
Whose face?
Trump. Oh no, he missed it. Because rewatch it 1 second again. You'll see Trump tries to release the handshake and Z holds on.
Oh, is that what happened?
Reclenches. Yeah, you watch it again. You'll see Trump tried to release the handshake. He opens his hand and Z doesn't release.
Let me see it again.
Trump starts like scowling.
Look at that grip, Pat.
And then got a
It's
question
getting tighter.
on his face.
Good to see you again. Good to see you again.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
It's hurting my hand.
PBD hits up on that?
No.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
See that? Now look at the face. Look at his face. And now you get questioning. Look, what's going on? What the hell is he doing here? Look at that. Look, you see that?
But he's a very tough negotiator.
Yeah. She was hoping to sign a long-term agreement after that.
You know what
Trump
Lefty's
said,
giving?
no, we're renewing this every year. So,
She's giving or Trump?
yeah.
She is giving a look like, oh my God, another American.
I don't
'Cause you
think
have
it
to
went as
realize
good as everybody thought it went.
Yeah, no, I think that when he pats him on the back as soon as he whatchamacallit, that's taking control of the
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
the
he
thing.
told him, all right, that's enough, clown.
It
Yeah,
could
I agree.
be that G was grabbing his hand to sort of try to reassert. Because I don't look at him as some sort of patsy. I could see that be a way he tried to reassert in a way.
Yeah.
But that's a good catch on your part.
All right. All right, man. Y'all have a good evening.
Have a good night, my
Somebody-
friend.
I'm gonna let somebody else get in there. Hopefully they'll give
You
you a
got
call
it.
and
Merry Christmas,
entertain
my
it.
brother.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Bye-bye.
Happy holiday. Bye-bye.
All right. There you go. There you go. I don't have to do the phone calls, by the way. If people are scared of me, I get it. I can be a very intimidating person sometimes. I'm not trying to be. I don't know what happened to your chat. I saw it, and it's not there.
I know. I was trying to find it too. I was going to give you the time slot for it, but I can't find it either. I don't know what happened to it.
I don't know, but you sent it was one of those member things.
Membership
right?
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, member thing. Yeah.
I don't know why it got eaten up. Like I don't remember. I didn't unstar anything because what happens is when someone sends something through YouTube, whether it's a super chat or it's a member comment or they gift. So it automatically, I have a running chat on the side of my view of myself, and they get starred. And then there's a category of things that are starred, and that got starred. Like I saw it, and now I'm looking at my starred stuff, and I don't unstar. Sometimes if you have a ton of them, people will start unstarring it so that they sort of keep track of how many they have left. So like when you see like. When you have those trial streams, like depth trials, so like you have like several hundred of those, so you start unstarring them after you like sort of knock them off. But I don't unstar them when on a regular stream. I'll get like I get a few dozen, but it doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, basically what I was saying everybody should give you gifts tonight because you're in the market for a new car. Perhaps you wanted that Lexus with the bow in your driveway.
No, that's right. That's right. Okay, so fine. I am.
But it worked better at the time.
It did work better because I made a joke about if you celebrate Christmas by giving your wife a Lexus with a big giant bow on top of it. I didn't even think about the fact that yes, I did get a new lease. Then I actually
got a new lease?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where to go to get a lease. I actually felt very bad because like a friend of mine who I didn't know was a car dealer called me up today. He's like, so, I want to get you in a car. And I was like, dude, I literally got in a lease like an hour after I put a notice. I like put out a notice on one of these like, group chats for my community saying, any, a good person that I can lease a car from. And like 3 people recommended the same person. So I was like, all right. And I was like, what do you got for me? I just need a car. It's functional. I'm like, Lady Logic and I are so like basic that I'm just like, all right. I was like, do we still need a minivan? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, fine. So like, what do you can give me? That's a good deal right now. So people are happy with that. Yeah. I'm like, okay. Like the biggest thing was like, what color?
Right.
So
actually, the way I choose the cars, I'll get them to give me 2 or 3 choices that are about the same cost. Then I call my insurance company and find out which has the cheapest insurance.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So I'm like you. I agree with you on that. Like, it's not where I spend my money. It's not my car.
Yeah, like what car I'm renting for a couple of years. Like, what do I care? Like, it's literally to get me from one place to another. And usually, I'll use my car. My car gets used within. It's almost always within 3 miles of my house. Like, rarely straying beyond that. And once in a while, I'll like go. We'll go on like a long trip. I guess sometimes
go to Queens to visit Dad.
I guess, yeah. I go to Queens to visit my dad. Sometimes I go on a long trip, like twice a year, maybe. But it's like I don't need like. I guess if I ever go down to DC, I was driving. I owned still own technically a very old car. But yeah. Anyhow, so he's teasing that I need money for a car, and it's true. They're really expensive. These leases are crazy. It's really crazy. Anyway, what's going on with you, brother?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I know you've been talking about a lot, not tonight you didn't talk about, but a lot you've been talking about busting the filibuster and how the GOP needs to deliver if they want to keep the House.
Yep.
Or anything in 2026. And it's mind-numbing to me how they've done nothing. Like, you look back and it's like, you have done nothing to make my life better in the past year.
Congress has
You
not.
came in on this big, right.
Congress has not.
Trump has done.
Yeah.
Right, Congress has not. It's like, you guys came in on this big red wave, we're going to change your life, and you've done nothing.
Yep. It's only been Trump. And everything we've gotten has just been Trump.
And then everything gets challenged in court. It's like, Congress, do your job, pass a law, so they can't be challenged in court.
Yeah. And the only way that'll happen is with the filibuster. You see, and as I've said many times since I've joined this kill the filibuster bandwagon, is the point of the filibuster is to have people negotiating in good faith, but there is no negotiating in good faith, because you could be advocating for something they were advocating for 2 years ago, and they'll just be against it because it's you and they don't like you.
Right.
So that's not
same thing with the blue slips. You can't get any federal prosecutors in. Cory Booker's going to allow anybody in. Come on, it's just a joke here.
There's no one he'll allow in unless the person is some woke, crazy person. So
right.
I don't know how we get rid of Cory Booker. You should run.
You should run. I should run against him.
Yeah, run for Senate. I'll vote for you. I'll vote for you.
Good. I'll get one vote at least.
There you go. Should I write you in?
But anyway, that's another thing, by the way. Talking about that, here in Jersey, has the GOP even said who they're going to run next? Cory Booker's up for re-election this year. The GOP's not even putting it. It's going to put up some loser candidate. They don't even hold it's competitive.
It's pathetic. It's pathetic.
It's pathetic. And you see who they're trying to run in our district for Congress, also pathetic.
Yeah.
They chased Billy Prempe out, and they're putting up this Clifton Councilwoman Pino.
I don't know. Billy Prempe is 0 for 2. And
no, I'm not saying they shouldn't replace him, but it's who you replace him with.
Billy Prempe. So what he's referring to is the congressional district that we're Mr. Shia over here lives in town with me, so I see him on the regular, and he and I have the same congressman. So when Pasquale passed on, we ended up getting Nilly Poe. And my point was that Prempe lost to Pasquale, and then when Nellie Poe was the last second fill-in, he lost to her too. So I'm like, I don't know if this guy, he seems like a nice guy. He seems like, I don't have a problem with anything of it. He just doesn't win. So like, if you're not winning, what are you doing?
Yeah. So they're putting in now Rosemary Pino. He dropped out because Rosemary Pino's, he didn't want to run in with an actual primary. So Rosemary Pino's going to get the nod for the Republicans in our district, and she comes with a ton of baggage.
Does she?
She ran originally as a Democrat, and then switched to a Republican 2 years ago to run for county clerk. The Clifton people don't love her on council. That's possibly why she's running, because Clifton Council's up next year. I know everybody else might be finding this boring, but local politics is what I do.
Right.
And it's a mess. It's like she wouldn't win her council seat again. So I think this is her way of gracefully exiting, not saying I lost, saying, I ran for Congress. I lost for Congress. Because I don't think a Republican can actually win in our district, but you have to at least put up a decent candidate to even get a try.
It's so pathetic. We have a lot of there's a very strong Hispanic vote here.
Yeah,
so,
well, that's the only thing she has going for her is that Hispanic vote.
Is that she's Hispanic? Yeah.
Well, maybe surprising things have happened before.
But you're saying she's useless. So she left the Democratic Party and became a Republican to fight for this is what she bills herself as. Rosie Pino, building bridges, shattering barriers. A mom, wife, educator, cancer survivor, a Clifton City Councilwoman, and proud American who beat the odds. She left the Democratic Party and became a Republican to fight for the working class. Now she's taking the fight for the American dream to Washington. Yeah.
I was quite friendly with her when I ran for council, and she was in 22.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 20? No, I was becoming friendly with her in 2020, and There was some Bernie. She was a big Bernie supporter back then, so that's how I know she's a fraud.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Useless.
Right. So
She's useless.
total. Yeah. If she was a Bernie Sanders, I tried to pull some political strings to get her into a Bernie rally. In the end, it didn't work out, but she was a Bernie Sanders Democrat, like not just a Democrat, a Bernie Sanders Democrat, and now she's the Republican. Yeah.
Yeah, but see, but they feel like I can't beat a Latino. She's gonna go in there and basically start talking Spanish to them, and I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. The nomination's hers. It's just ridiculous that this is what the, our people put up.
We gotta move.
Honestly, we do. And our new governor is just gonna be lovely.
Gosh, I don't want to think about it. All right, brother, let me go.
Yeah. All right, let me go.
Have a good night, my friend.
People, have a good job.
Take care. Bye-bye. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me explain something to you. Okay, let me explain something to you. My district has the biggest Latino community in like the country. It's like nobody in my community has heard of me. Okay. This is one of the things a lot of people miss. So it's not like doing this. You see 100,000 subscribers and you're like, wow, that's 100,000 more than I have. So people feel like, that makes you sort of like some sort of celebrity. No, it means in my jurisdiction, there's like 7 people have heard of me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's nothing. It's nothing. Because that's across the whole entire globe. So how many of them are here? It's not like I'm targeting my neighborhood any more than I'm targeting. Viva Fry ran for office when he was in Canada. And the guy was 5 times my size, and I don't think he got 3% of the vote. Because no one knows who the heck he is. He needs to have money. That's the reality. We need to get money from parties that are doling out money, which means you need to sort of get in political bed with people. Oh, yeah, you'll teach me Spanish. You'll teach me Spanish. I'll go out there. She's more tailored for it. She's more tailored to get votes than I am. That's 100% true. In this jurisdiction that I'm in. I'm not saying every jurisdiction, but the one I'm currently residing in, yeah. Come down to Lakewood. That's an interesting idea. Come down to Lakewood. Start addressing people in Yiddish. I don't speak Yiddish, but come down to Lakewood. That's an idea. There I'd have a shot at least. Northern Jersey, I have no shot at all. I don't have aspirations of becoming a politician. I've never had those kind of aspirations. It would be something to be like, fine. Like if I was like appointed. I don't have the patience for it. Anyway. All right. I think it's getting time for me to start thinking about landing my plane, right? I think that's the message I'm starting to get here. It's getting late. And he depressed the heck out of me. That's what it was. You can all blame Shia. He dude depressed the heck out of me. Basically telling me we stuck with Nellie Poe forever. And frankly, Nellie was nice to me when I asked her for tickets to the inauguration. She got me tickets. She's just another part of the stupid big blue block, which makes her part of the big blue blob and useless. So I don't really have a... but I appreciate you all. I have heard of James Fishback. Isn't he the guy who's complaining that he got... Didn't James Fishback, maybe I'm wrong, but James Fishback, isn't he a guy who says that he had various claims made against him that were false and he's been He's been maligned. Like, he's fighting some ugly claims, from what I recall. Am I wrong with that? Am I wrong about that? Each and every one of you. I don't know. All right. It's been quiet. So I'm going to basically land my plane. I think it's time anyway. I'm feeling tired. It's already 1:23 in the morning. I'm supposed to be wrapped up, and most of you, it's Christmas. You all need to wake up early. You all need to go, I don't want to ruin in case Santa's coming down your chimney. God only knows what, I don't want to ruin anything for you. So I am going to be landing my plane here. I think it's time for me to start shutting it down. That's what we're going to do. I thank you all for joining me. I'm going to wish each and every one of you a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And those of you who celebrate Kwanzaa, get a life. I think that covers that. And lab meat's not meant for you. It's meant for they, them. And Joe, did you talk about Fulton County's 300,000 legally counted votes in 2020? I did. I covered that the other night. I did cover that the other night. I even covered Candace Owens tonight, which I didn't plan to do that, but I did. I spent a long time talking about that. So anyway, do not eat the bugs. Don't do it. Just don't. Good night, my friends. Merry Christmas and Godspeed.